Last year one was very impactful. I'm looking forward to this year's one. And I think Proshare is doing an amazing job.
Yes, of course I'll be attending. Definitely, yes.
Definitely, I'm looking forward to it. I'll surely be attending.
Yes, I would be attending. I've heard a lot about Proshare and I'm looking forward to the webinar.
It promises to be great and hopefully I'll definitely be there.
Oh yes, I have the link and I'm looking forward to it.
Good morning, our guests from Nigeria. Good afternoon and good evening from other parts of the world. And thank you for joining us today. I am Adelodun Jimoh, the Client Relationship Manager of Proshare and your host for today's webinar. Kindly let us know the location you are joining in from and feel free to interact with us in the chat box. Share your thoughts as we go ahead with the webinar. On behalf of the board and management team of Proshare, I welcome our speakers, participants joining us in Nigeria and abroad. We are delighted to have you today as we discuss the theme online trading in the age of distributed ledger technology, DLT, improving investors' experience. As the discussions around machine learning, artificial intelligence, and distributed ledger technology in capital market payments and settlement system, trade actions become louder, the need to harmonize plans, programs, and sector outlooks become compelling. It is within this context that an online trading webinar that addresses these issues has been proposed. We are optimistic that this webinar will weigh in on the subject matter critically and enable everyone present better appreciate the opportunities inherent in cross-border trading, especially at a time like this where fintechs such as Chaka, Bamboo, Trove, etc. are helping to facilitate securities trading on international exchanges to enable retail investors trade global stocks. To do justice to the theme, we have with us Dr. Olufemi OYENUGA, the Chief Digital Officer, Technology Services Division, Nigerian Exchange Group. It will explain to us how DLT can help to improve the trading experience of investors. We also have other seasoned experts that will present on key focus areas from technology and trading to trends and opportunities in equities, fixed income, and commodity markets. Before I hand over to the keynote speaker and then the moderator, I would like to share some guidelines of this webinar. If your Zoom is too low, kindly check your system volume. The webinar is being recorded and live streamed on Web TV Live and on Web TV YouTube. Please join in to watch. To comment and have discussions, kindly use the chat icon. To submit your questions, please use the Q&A icon. Only the questions submitted in the Q&A icon will be attended to. Thank you once again for joining us, and to our speaker sponsor, CSCS, we appreciate you for contributing your time and resources to make this day a reality. And I welcome Dr. Olufemi OYENUGA, the Chief Digital Officer, Technology Services, the Nigerian Exchange. Brief info on Dr. Olufemi. Dr. Olufemi is experienced in delivering value propositions across vertical organizations, enterprise and public sector, with a resolve to achieve efficiencies, effectiveness in promotional management and revenue leveraging, IT and ICT. He's also a data scientist who leads the Oracle solution pattern as part of the data engineering information management capabilities. Olufemi, who being a medical professional, has associated bouquet of degrees from Harvard Business School, Columbia Business College, Imperial College London, as well as Pan-African University, Lagos. A certified member of Information Management Society, Royal College of Engineers, and certified enterprise data miner. Is also an advisory to board members of Data Scientists Nigeria and extends different advisory responsibilities in Africa and Europe. His depth in the telecommunication industries, BT, MTNN, spans over 15 years with pitch insights in security white papers produced on enterprise data lake, Internet of Things, and business intelligence. He was responsible for MTN Group Enterprise Architecture Blueprint Leadership. We now open the floor for Dr. Olufemi OYENUGA.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the introduction. I hope I'm being heard. Can you hear me very well?
Yes.
Yes, we can, Doctor. Please go ahead.
Fantastic. So I'm also quite excited about what Proshare is bringing to the table, and the distinguished speaker for this subject is a very interesting subject, topical to how we're evolving in the country, in the region, and across the world. In fact, I dare say that some of the discussion today might not do total justice to what we're trying to pivot or we're trying to elevate, but it will try to open the door of our mind to what online trading is in a digital age. As we look at digital, customization, engagement, innovation, digital infrastructure, digital security, compliance, and regulation. How does digital ledger technology help to solve this problem? So I've put together some talking points that I will, for 15 minutes, that I will go through, and I hope I can do justice to it. In terms of the content, what does digital technology means? What does the disintermediation mean? The kind of digital asset that we're talking about that we can trade, how risk and regulation can be seen, and the benefits of the capital market as a whole. And thanks for the moderator, because she did mention things around Chaka, Bamboo, Trove, Binance. Unfortunately, some people's hands have been burned off within this entire technology as well. But the distributed ledger technology is the technology infrastructure and protocols that enables simultaneous access, validation, updating, controlling across multiple locations, multiple networks in a decentralized fashion. So it also means that simultaneous peer-to-peer sharing, updating of records will be faster, efficient, and cheaper. Now, but what does this really mean to our business world? So we look at it from a business network, we look at it from a wealth perspective, and we look at it from a marketing perspective, private and public market, supply chain, etc. Now, there are different types of decentralized ledgers. There are also a lot of centralized ledgers as well in the traditional world, but we also have distributed ledger coming to play here. What does that now do? It helps us with the transfer of assets, building of value, and also help us to control ownership of products and services. So fundamentally, there are two types of assets, tangible and intangible. I know there's a lot of gurus on this call. And you also have financial and intelligent patterns of assets as well, bonds and patents on definitely the almighty cash. And I think we're expecting the change of cash, new cash notes in Nigeria in January, even as we see e-naira advance into the future. What does the ledger now mean? It's a system of record that helps business to have multiple ledger and multiple businesses to participate in transaction or a contract. So for instance, Bola buys a car from Femi, or John pays Anthony, or a car won't start, if a car would not start, fund will not pass to John and third party and things like that. That's actually a ledger system. So the disintermediation of this process is what this technology helps us to achieve. So financial disintermediation is very important. The purpose of disintermediation as well is to help us cut costs, to help us speed up delivery, or sometimes both. So this part of the blockchain technology, DLT for short, allows people and organizations who may know each other or may not know each other to trust themselves and collectively agree on the pattern where this information can be stored or captured by authority in a third party. In fact, I dare say that it helps us to trust the data as well. What the kind of digital asset that will be traded in this new digital world? So we have things around crypto, commodities, utilities, security, reward tokens, stablecoin, CBDC from central bank, decentralized finance, and the almighty NFTs. They're all coming as a potpourri. But you recall that before we had this technology, institutions would always use middlemen or tools. And this actually comes with a lot of uncertainty and risk. You know, the bank has evolved from pen and paper to machines to electronics. But in 2005, with the evolution of the World Wide Web, a lot of online trading was projected by Amazon, eBay, Alibaba, and things like that. Even banking institutions began to now digitize their corporate and legal system as well, in accordance to legal recommendation. So in a nutshell, what the DLT will give is it allows participants to have a consensus, a provision, a collegiate, immutable finality to records. And it has the regulators playing it, the insurers playing there, the bank playing there, and also the auditors as well. So ultimately, the DLT does four things. It gives us a shared ledger that we can home in. It gives us a shared contract that gives us the ability to put it in a database, in a transactional form, and everybody has some peace of mind. It gives us some privacy and trust. All this is called trusted intelligence and digital trust in 2022 going forward. So this is where CSCS starts from, where you have governance and risk, security and things like that, but that's what it pivots. Now, what kind of DLTs can you have? You have permissionless ones and the permission one. Ultimately, the example of the permissionless one are the Ethereum and Bitcoin. The Ripples, no native token, are the example of the permission one. So a block can be created by any node because it's permissionless. But in the permission one, more attractive for institution operating timestamp registry, like we have in the capital market or within the court system, judiciary system, using a ledger. So people can actually share the ledger and ensure that the system is all recording all the different transcripts in one snapshot. What it then means is that a smart contract can be created in DLT. And what a smart contract means is you have business and individuals through the system operating on a peer-to-peer basis. Document and asset can be expressed in code, publicly accessible records, historical records, transactions are created. So in short, there's a contract between parties written in code, it's executed in codes, and individuals as well can maintain monitorability in code. I think I'm on the 15th slide, please. Now, what that does is the benefits of this DLT is it helps with identity management, it helps with asset tracking, it removes uncertainty, it re-engages deals and creates that component across our industry. Now, there's an autonomous architecture around this that is born in the cloud. You can pre-assemble it, manage it, both in the public cloud and the private cloud. And it goes through the hyperledger fabric of the blockchain nodes in a containerized version. All these are all boring stuff. Anyway, let me pivot to the interesting stuff. But for people who are technologically advanced, you want to know things around the platform as a service, Kafka, managed services, and things like that. Now, how do we now apply this? The application of this can be seen in our industry today on online trading. So if you look at the snapshot on trade finance, the image, the schematics that I put together has been enabled with digital technology, digital ledger technology, where you have customers, importers and importers, insurers, exporters, shippers, interbanks, exporter interbank and importer interbank, corresponding bank, the main exporter, the primary exporter, and document carrier, all involved in an ecosystem, sharing all the information between them. So DTL enables the workflow to build from an actual proof of process system where each step of the workflow can be signed by all stakeholders. That's one of the things that is applicable in the finance space. In traceability of diamond as well, I'm on the slide 20, where you have fingerprinting of diamond. Each stone has basic character, and the basic character of each stone can be codified in a ledger So every ledger has a permanent ledger for the diamond certification. I'm on slide 20 for and relatable transactional history. So that is another application of the DLT in online trading. So you have fingerprinted diamond traceable. Now you move into land registry as well. Now when you look at land registry, as a broker system in land registry, as an exchange, as a clearing house, that's the registry, that's a central bank, that's a settlement partner, custodians, all interplaying, because before the land rate, most of it, 90% of rural areas are not even on a cadastral registry system. The DLT can help create that timestamp transparency for online trading in land registry. So that this schematic shows the entire ecosystem from cradle to grave, ensuring that validity of the document of asset transaction timestamp are all notarized with this solution in a mathematically signed proof. Now, when we look at clearing and settlement, if you look at the global view, now the capital market now, 80% of security and trade are reconciled in a T+3 fashion. And I know that CSCS would give us a bit of inflow into this. But as we're looking at 2025, the blockchain can actually help us achieve real-time processing with transparency leading to a potential savings of 20 billion per year. So the digital ledger technology promises to reduce costs of up to 20 billion from clearing and settlement. Another good example, cross-border payment as well. You know, why does it matter? Customers need instant, cost, and real effective cross-border payment. What the DLT will come to do for us is, like Ripple, incorporate a customer, or Transwire for retail customer, provide solution to help hasten that relationship between the cross-border organization and cross-border commercial intent. So the schematics on slide, the next slide shows how Ripple and Swift helps to use DLT as a cross-border beneficiary. So you see that all from Brazil to South Korea is just one line now, from North America to Africa, one line, rather than having this ripple of systems before that cannot be trusted. Two major innovations are competing and collaborating to improve cross-border payment using DLT. Now, there's also examples in the financial services as well. You know, property leasing, corporate actions, know your customer, subscriber order, asset management. All these are things that we can point to. I'm just accelerating because of time. Now, what this thing does, the DLT is as a performance for scalability that it brings, as a resilience for high availability and autonomous data feed that it brings, as a security and privacy that it brings, as a support and operational dashboarding for zero downtime that it brings, as a development and integration for development modules for support using different RESTful API and all of that interesting Node.js and Java that it brings. Let us now look at the insurance as angle as well. From online trading in insurance, DLT would also offer the promise of cost reduction, enhanced efficiency, enabling revenue growth, and insurance can attract new businesses through high quality service. What's ahead? DLT promises numerous of insurance businesses. Where are we coming from? It flourishes underwriting of claims using the KYC that I initially mentioned, asset tracking and registration. So a lot of nugget for DLT, and the schematics underneath shows how you can use DLT to codify business rules and automate claim processes for smart contracts, permanent immutable audit trails, ledger, eliminate the common errors, source of fraud in insurance industry. I'll give an example there as well, global example, where even in the medical record, using cryptography, you can actually use shared record between hospital provider, online, this is online training in healthcare, because insurance is very close to healthcare in most advanced territory. And we're surely growing the acceleration of that in Nigeria as well. So by securing reinsurance contracts, the blockchain can help smart contracts using a DLT solution to help insurance and reinsurance. Now, let me bring it home. Other application of DLT can be seen within the other digital asset type, central bank. So central bank digital currency is one example for financial inclusion. Decentralized finance, DeFi, you can hold monetary money in secure digital wallet. I think that's where we are going. The e-wallet and e-naira is going in the end, and it eliminates the fees that banks and other financial services actually put in front of customers. So this also helps us with online trade. Now, the interesting white elephant in the room, non-fungible token, where because of NFTs now, data units or fractionalization of shares can quickly happen in our capital market and using digital files such as pictures, videos, and audios. So the non-fungible tokens are cryptographic assets that DLT would uniquely assign a code to and helps the metadata to distinguish one from another. Quite a very interesting and nifty solution. Web 3.0 as well helps to create transparency and data, online data during transaction, and helps to centralize organizations such as Twitter and Facebook that are using it now. So it's the next iteration of the internet. So watch this space, guys, for online trading. But we also have things like real asset world token, like royal means, climate change, very important. We have carbon dating and carbon graphics now, a carbon credit, all fashioned around it, real line asset token. But the story is not all one direction of all the things that DLTs can give us. In fairness, it needs to be well regulated. Because global policy making around digital asset was very fragmented before, but it's coming together. And I think that's one of the highlights of this webinar as well. I heard it when the moderator was introducing the topic. How do you ensure the online market changes and emerging threats are not consuming the advantage of the decentralized assets? How do we ensure KYC for customers are all within the framework of anti-money laundering and know your customer? And the risk as well. There's a lot of risk. Sometimes investment risk in digital assets is not backed by fiscal holding or fiat currency issued by government. So, for instance, the owner of a very popular DLT propelled solution just passed on at the age of 30 and disappeared with millions of dollars. And some even went into bankruptcy and lost over $400 billion. So things are some of the risks. The code are risk as also a risk. Coding can refer to vulnerability in a decentralized assets, given that the complex nature of these protocols may not be uncommon, and errors in the code that can provide malicious party with an attack can vector and help them steal things. So there are risks. But what are the benefits? Let me bring the good story home as I round up. So in safe science, DLT will help us reduce costs. It will help us increase trust and reduce risk as well. In fairness, when we are looking at fragmentation of shares, the fractional shares opportunities has helped, DLT has helped to usher in new waves of investor online. Fractional shares also helps a commission-free online trading, paving way for the record number of first-time investors, most especially that we have millennial and digital investors in our ecosystem. If you have a population of 75 to 90 million millennials and digital investors now, and they're so glued to DLT technology in other ways like Bet Nigeria or Bet Africa or Nintendo, we can bring the solution and use it to the advantage in the capital market. And the last word as I close is small investors can buy slices of stocks in the capital market so that we can all be better and make it a better place. Thank you very much. As I've come to the end of my discussion, takeaways: digital interaction through online systems, digital infrastructure through DLT, a variant of blockchain, risk assessment, compliance, and also cloudification of online trade for efficiency and agility in the 2020 and beyond. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to share some of these thoughts generically. Thank you.
Indeed, our keynote speaker has done justice to the theme of the webinar. And thank you very much, sir, for doing justice. It's been insightful, and we are looking forward to other insightful presentations from other speakers of the webinar. Permit me to introduce the moderator for this webinar in person of Mr. Teslim Shitta-bey. Mr. Teslim Shitta-bey has the floor now.
Okay, thank you very much, Adelodun. Thank you for the introduction. Dr. OYENUGA, I want to doff my cap. I'm not wearing one, but if I were, I would have doffed my cap to you for providing us with such a stimulating presentation within such a short period of time. That was really insightful and brilliant. But something I want to ask you before other people can jump in and ask their questions. That's the privilege of being a moderator. I particularly was interested in the area of land, and actually in the rural area. We have 40 million plus SMEs in Nigeria. A lot of that transaction doesn't occur in the urban centers, but in the rural centers. Now, we've pushed agriculture very strongly in Nigeria. And we've said we want to grow the agricultural sector as a way of diversifying revenues. But most of the people who engage in agriculture don't have land titles. Can DLT provide an opportunity for these people to access the financial system despite the fact that they don't have the traditional land titles? That's one of the questions I would really like you to answer. And then as a second question, as a chaser to that question, you've talked about DLT and its opportunities. Now, with the state of the art where it is globally now and where Nigeria is, what gap do we need to fill? And how much time do you have? How much time do you feel we have to fill that gap? Doctor, have you heard me? Yes.
No, I've heard it very well, and those are very interesting questions. I'd rather say flesh and blood did not even reveal those questions to you, but you've laid it in a way where we can actually talk on this for 2 or 3 hours. Yes, you're right. How about a centralized pivot around agricultural, drive that we're trying to establish in the country with land and certification with DLT. DLT can actually, and it's actually helping some states. So Lagos State, for example, is embarking on putting some of the land on this technology, as well as Ogun State as well, so that the title deed within that entire ecosystem, if you look at the slide I shared on land, there are 5 main players in this ecosystem where the DLT is bringing together. So you have the registrars, you have the custodians, you have the clients outside, you have the brokers and the landowners as well. What DLT does is it gives an immutable code that is owned by all the parties, so that there is a proof of trust, of ownership, and certification of the land, and that can help even with financial inclusion as well, imperative, where the farmers. So if you look at things like around what Elo tractors are doing, Elo tractors are actually Ubers of tractor. They are not, in fact, most of the guys driving the tractor don't own the tractor. They just rent the tractor and use it in agricultural import or agricultural export all the time. Now, that's that synergy between the transportation system of Hello Tractor, ownership of land, certification of it, being coalesced and integrated with DLT. Ultimately, it helps with us solving a problem. And I think, yes, we are just playing catch up even in Nigeria because we've not started. Initially, that's a trust issue, but I think the trust issue is getting a big address to our attention. So, for instance, the youthful millennials are not interested in buying a property and keeping it for 25 years until the value improves. They're not interested in that. But perhaps they can do fractionalization of land via the DLT tokenized land purchase in a very wealthy place. So for instance, they can buy a section of a $5 million property in Banana or in Abuja or in Kano. Just put 5,000 there. And because it's a non-fungible token, they can tokenize it and sell it when they want to move because it's a sharp, microwave Japa syndrome, generation. Whereas the older 50s and 60s can let a land fallow for 6 to 30 years. So that's what they ought to do. Your question is also spot on. The curriculum must change. We are playing catch up, but the good news is that everything that needs to be digitized will be digitized. It's just a matter of time. So the same iPhone that I carry in Nigeria is what somebody is carrying in Australia, and the same person is carrying in Qatar. Is how we are now using it. So good curriculum, our triple helix system, where we actually begin to look at things around machine learning, automation, artificial intelligence, new codification, new technologies that is driving change must be accelerated. It's shocking, sir, to find out that some universities are still teaching COBOL and Fortran in 2022. That doesn't make any sense to me. So part of the digital infrastructure pillar that the National Economy for Digital Growth in Nigeria is putting together is to address those pillars to say curriculums must change, harness them from youth, go into the primary school, begin a digital hub, innovation hub, begin an acceleration program, expose them to this technology, bring seed investors in, let the fintech, agri-tech, reg-tech, soundboxing, regulation drive this, and let's scale to the next level. So those things are also happening, and we're quite excited about the momentum as well. So yes, we may be playing catch up, but technology has no barrier. It's all in the mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That was brilliant. The conversation continues because what you have said is very vital to the growth of the Nigerian capital market. We should be preparing for the market of tomorrow and perhaps take a few lessons from the market of yesterday. But ultimately, Nigeria needs to grow its capital market, and DLT seems to be one of the ways to do it. And I'm happy that you talked about clearing and settlements in the DLT system. To help us get a deeper understanding of this, clearing and settlement using DLT technology, is Mr. Babangida Yahaya. Mr. Babangida Yahaya is the head of Depository of Central Securities Clearing System, a position he has responsibility for supervising the delivery of depository services to a growing portfolio of real estate and private equity fund clients. Mr. Babangida Yahaya has about 15 years of cognate banking and capital market experience, with the last 8 years holding various management capacities. Prior to taking up the role as the head of Depository CSCS, he was lead operations transformation SQA group operations. He has worked extensively in the cross-functional roles. He possesses unique experience and skill set, which he deploys towards achieving strategic corporate goals. Mr. Babangida Yahaya has an antecedent for managing big teams, repositioning them and keeping them engaged towards the realization of corporate goals. A certified trainer that has also contributed to several mentoring schemes. And I'm happy that Mr. Yahaya is a certified trainer because Dr. OYENUGA just talked about the need to drill down the knowledge about digital technology to a younger generation. And so your mentoring capacity will come in useful here while you give us insights into the subject matter, understanding the clearing and settlement system in the age of distributed ledger technology. Critically, moving the needle forward. That's very critical for me, moving the needle forward. So, Mr. Yahaya, you have the floor, please. Could you educate us on the clearing systems and how the clearing system takes advantage of DLT? Thank you very much. Mr. Yahaya?
Good morning once again. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm really delighted to be on this session, to get an opportunity to not only contribute, but to also learn. Dr. OYENUGA, our keynote speaker, has opened the session with a very powerful presentation. And I think that by so doing, he has also made my work a lot easier because I'll be looking to leverage on the foundation he has built for us this morning. I think my own conversation is a very brief one, and it is just essentially to highlight what the DLT itself represents as in this age and time as it relates to clearing and settlement. For us at the CSCS, one of our core mandates for the market is clearing and settlement for the entire market. We are security agnostic. We handle clearing and settlement for all asset classes, be it equities, fixed income, commodities. And beyond that, we're also a depository, right, of assets. Dr. OYENUGA has also spoken extensively about the application of DLT to certain asset classes. For example, he talked about land, depository, and all of that. So there are a lot of capabilities, there are a lot of opportunities in the market where we are also looking to learn and to also expand our reach in terms of what we offer the market. But to just get very quickly into the topic of the day, as Dr. OYENUGA has already done a very good job, I will just avoid going to what I would call the definition of DLT or how the DLT works. He has already done more than enough justice to that. But I think given the context of the conversation we're having, it's also important to focus on some key elements in terms of how the DLT works. So for example, when Dr. OYENUGA is speaking, he talked about, earlier talked about the capability of distributing ledger, around on a peer-to-peer network. There are also very strong encryption anti-tampering measures that the DLT brings as a value to guard against data being removed, retroactively altered. There are benefits around consensus algorithms, which of course is a consensus mechanism that authenticates the underlying data to ensure that all participants have the same view on the data. And of course, there's also the issue of smart contracts. And the reason why I say let's contextualize is because if you look at these key elements and try to bring it into what we do in this our market, we can quickly begin to see some of the benefits. But to even proceed on this, it's important to also look at our current clearing and settlement landscape. And it has evolved. We've actually come a long way. I remember the days, whether I was in this market or not, I'm sure there were the days of call-over system where it probably took more than several weeks to clear an instrument. And this is not just applicable to Nigeria, even across the globe. If you look at other markets, the Indian market, even other African markets, there was a time it took perhaps as much as 45 days to clear instruments. But that has gradually changed. So it is gradually evolving, and good thing that we have technology today, which has become an enabler for some of these feats that we've been able to achieve. And that is also the reason why we're talking about DLT today. Today, we're in a market where we are predominantly doing T+3, if you look at the equities market. But there are also conversations that are happening around how that can be improved. Whilst we're having that conversation on one hand, on the other hand, in other markets, we are looking at jurisdictions where T+0 is already a conversation. And to even take it further, we're talking about atomic settlements today, where these settlements happen instantaneously. All of these capabilities could only have been possible by the emerging technologies that we have seen today. And that's also one of the reasons why we are talking about DLT today. So in further applying the DLT to clearing and settlement, as it were, considering that DLT in itself brings some benefits around decentralizing the network, which obviously comes with some benefits that we have listed. The question is, are there benefits for us in adopting the DLT as it relates to our clearing and settlement today? So let me just take a good look at our market. And I think the keynote speaker also touched on this. If we take a look at the average age of our investing public, our investors in the market today, the last time we checked, it was somewhere around close to 55. We're talking about how to, to bring in the younger generation into our markets. And one would wonder why exactly it is that they are not exactly interested. We've seen the sort of activities that have been witnessed around cryptocurrencies, and we've also seen the demography in terms of the investors that participate in this space. And this is exactly where the younger generations are coming from. In a conversation, someone I was having a conversation with he was asking me, because of course I was in the bank before now, and he was asking me where I was working. I told him CSCS. He wasn't exactly sure what that meant. And I tried to explain what we do as capital market. And I tried to also ask why he's not interested in investing in the market. And he said to me that he doesn't really understand this. He doesn't understand why he has to wait for 3 days to get settlement. And that's the reality of the world that we found ourselves in. If we want to begin to expand the reach of investors or participation in this market, especially as regards the younger generation, that we need to look at, we need to understand their appetite and begin to position in terms of how these things are changing. In terms of the benefits that the DLT itself brings to clearing and settlement, so for example, we have talked about the fact that it connects participants to each other on a peer-to-peer network. We've talked about how it also allows for sharing on database management responsibilities, either directly with each other on a peer-to-peer basis. And of course, what will also be critical here is being able to differentiate what roles critical players will play, within this market. The question is there a rationale for adoption of DLT for clearing and settlement? Obviously, there's a rationale, and for so many reasons. A lot has been mentioned by the keynote speaker. So, for example, we're talking about how it reduces complexity, especially around cross-border transactions, in the way and manner that assets can easily be transferred across entities, maybe as a result of tokenization, and some of these benefits that DLT itself brings. We're talking about how we can actually improve our end-to-end processing speed and availability of assets and funds. Again, largely also driven by the efficiency gains that come as a result of tokenization. In terms of rationale, as a market today, there are conversations about how we can decrease the need for reconciliation across multiple infrastructures. Multiple record-keeping infrastructures, let me put it that way. Today, we're a depository, so we centrally warehouse data for the market, and you find situations where some of this data flows, amongst market participants. So, for example, we send advices to the registrars and all of that. So, as accurate as the data may be, there's still the need for various entities to want to verify, the correctness of this data, and as such, you have these incidences where reconciliation will continue to happen across different entities. We're talking about increasing transparency. Transparency, obviously, is in trying to deepen our market, in trying to increase confidence in the market. Transparency would definitely play a very critical role. The sort of value that transparency brings by way of the immutability in transaction record processing and record keeping DLT is also something we cannot ignore. And overall, we are talking about operational efficiencies. We are talking about cost of doing transactions and all of that. So if we look at all these things within the context of what DLT offers, then we can clearly begin to see the rationale as to why this should be a conversation. And this also dovetails directly into the benefits, that comes to the market. So we've talked about settlement cycle. Today we're having conversations about how to reduce that settlement cycle. We've gone from a T+5 to T+3. Some markets have moved to T+2. The US and Canada are preparing to go into T+1. So and we are also not left behind. But the question is, how do we do this in the best interest of the market, in the most efficient manner, and in a way that serves the best interest of all participants? Is there a benefit around this DLT, right? Obviously, we've seen how the DLT, the application of DLT to settlements around digital assets, have also been done, around the globe. In terms of the benefits as well, where I've talked about transparency earlier, I've talked about, in some markets, there are requirements for trade guarantee, of course, trade guarantee funds and all of that, just to minimize default risk. But no matter how elaborate, we highlight the benefits, considerations, that we must take a close look at, especially in terms of the risk. Again, the keynote speaker spoke about some risk, but I have, looked at this risk and decided to categorize into 4 areas. One is around technology. The other one is around what I would consider operational governance and controls. And the other one will be around implementation. And last but not the least would be around legal and regulatory implications and the likes. So for example, if we just delve into this very quickly, I know that I'm really short on time. In terms of technology, right? What we've seen with DLT in itself is a bleeding edge technology that has really yet to be tested in all areas of operations. There are slight applications in different aspects, but it also comes with some potential risk. This risk needs to be properly evaluated. In terms of operational governance and controls, of course, when implementing DLT-based solutions, especially when they are multi-parties, you begin to think of the complexities that as a result of the decentralized nature of the system. And this raises governance issues. And, it's also, even in terms of the implementation as well, there are also things that we need to carefully think about. And, but more importantly is around regulation. We are a very highly regulated market. And it's difficult to take a step without the appropriate guidance in terms of regulation. So I think this is even one of the most critical issues we should be looking at. And I'm very happy that from a regulatory perspective, regulators today are beginning to show some sort of, leadership and direction as regards some of these emerging technologies. On the CBN side, for example, we see what the CBN is trying to do around digital assets with the e-Naira and all of that. And even recently, the CBN has also taken some sort of leadership around driving the use of DLT for fractional shares, and all of that. From the SEC side, we've seen the release of rules, around digital assets and all of that. So I think this is very critical, because if regulation doesn't make that move, then it becomes very difficult for participants to move ahead of regulation, in my opinion. But I think from here, how do we move forward? How do we really move forward? It's not just about highlighting the benefits. Obviously, the benefits are immense. We cannot just continue to, we can't speak enough about them. But the question is, how do we really begin to move from this point? And I think for me, I would say, first and foremost, around regulatory direction and approvals. In what way would regulation, stimulate the market such that participants can begin to, adopt this DLT technology, especially for entities like us who clearly see the benefits around clearing and settlement, which is one of the key mandates for us as a market. But there's also the issue around infrastructure to support the adoption of this technology. And I think that from an infrastructure perspective, it is more market holistic and not just limited to individual entities like a CSCS that handles clearing and settlement. Obviously, infrastructure must also be supportive within the ecosystem to ensure that this technology can be consumed to the best of benefits. Of course, predetermined regulatory requirements, I think is also important, is again, considering that DLT can be implemented in different models. We need to, as a market, decide what model works best in the best interest of our market. And we also need to have conversations around who can do what and who is permitted to do what operation, and all of that. I think these are very, very critical conversations that we must have. I think that there's also a need for us to continue to advocate to the market, the entire market participants in terms of buying. There's a lot of knowledge gap around this, and but the beauty of it is that I think we're making some progress, and people are getting more and more knowledgeable around this. But we, as a market, we need to do more around this to advocate, to educate people, to also try and get the markets buying, in terms of this. Of course, I think on a last note, I will say something about how I think I've talked about that predetermining the DLT arrangements in terms of the roles and functions for various participants. I know I've gone overboard, but I will just stop at this point, in case there are any questions I will need to entertain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yahaya. That was brilliant. I guess we're so interested and carried away by your presentation that time wasn't really a critical factor. But I want to thank you very much for a very brilliant presentation there. I would like to make a small appeal to subsequent speakers that if you have slides, you could kindly make them available so it's easier for participants at the session to follow the speaker. The good thing about it was that Mr. Yahaya's presentation was so succinct that it was easy to follow him without slides. However, we would like the slides, Mr. Yahaya, if they are available, kindly share the slides with us. Some of our participants have requested to see those slides. And like you have rightly pointed out, we need to broaden the conversation, get more people in, more people at a younger age to get buy-in into some of the things we are arguing or what we are proposing should occur in the market. And so your slides will be very, very useful. Thank you very much. But you're not going to go away lightly. You're not going to go away lightly. When you were talking, you talked about the Central Securities Clearing System and the fact that DLT is going to be a critical factor in what you do going forward. You also mentioned the fact that you do clearing for a variety of asset classes. Now, I have a question for you. Currently in Nigeria, the CSCS is not the only clearing platform. For instance, for fixed income securities, we have FMD Clear. We also have Nigeria Clear. And there are other clearing platforms that exist within the system for different asset classes. My first question to you is, in a world where we actually adopt, and perhaps, like you said, adapt DLT to our own situation, would you ask clearing institutions to reduce costs, improve efficiency and effectiveness, and generally just create an environment where transparency and clarity is enhanced by having a centralized system? Your organization is called the Central Securities Clearing System. Nice name, but there are other clearing platforms. So would you suggest that going forward, we could look at the possibility of integrating all these different platforms into one institution and apply the DLT technology to the clearing and settlement processes? That's one question I'd like to ask you. Another quick question I want to ask you is that how do we push the needle forward a bit by getting regulators, operators, and the federal government on the same page with timelines concerning the adoption of DLT capital markets, clearing and settlement activities. Thank you. I hope you heard me. Mr. Yahaya.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I think I got your questions, even though it was breaking up at some point. I believe it must have been from me. But just to take your first question in terms of multiple entities performing the same role, and as to whether, you know, unifying these entities perhaps may bring some value. So I will put it this way. So today we're a depository. We're not the only depository in the market, like you rightly said. I totally agree. And I think that the way I see it is that I see it more from the perspective of interconnectivity. That we're not the only depository in the market today. Is it a good thing for us at the CSS? I think it is absolutely a good thing. And what that also helps to do is competition. It drives competition, which I think that in the long run is in the ultimate best interest of the investor. So for me, I think it should be more about the investor. If there's competition, then there's an opportunity, or there's I mean, all entities, you know, will try to distinguish themselves by simply providing more value to the investor. And of course, the reason why I say interconnectivity is, again, bringing it back to the benefit of the investor. If there's interconnectivity, then you give the investor a choice, and it becomes possible for that investor to, you know, make their own choice between whatever options are available. So coming together as one entity, I'm not sure that's the value, because we'll go back to where I come. But to be able to have separate entities and be able to interconnect, you know, I think is where the real value lies for me. And I think that even recently the SEC, you know, had provided some level of preliminary guidance around how that should happen for the market. We're very happy. We're very open to it. It keeps everybody on their toes. Ultimately, the investor would benefit for it. So that's the first part. The second part, in terms of how to move this forward, I mentioned that for me, aspect around this is regulation. We saw the reaction, you know, at some point when there was some how that also impacted the market. Regulation is very critical, and I think that regulators must also take the driving seat in taking these conversations forward. However, I'm also of the school of thought that we must not necessarily wait for regulators to get things done to launch new initiatives. I think that as a market, we should also drive market-led initiatives by way of advocating to regulators, by way of advocating to who needs to be advocated to. And I think that's where we can play. So as a market, we must come together, identify what is good for the market, and push and advocate for some of these things to happen. And I believe that once there's that level of collaboration, some of these things will come to fruition even more quicker, you know, than we anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yahaya. But you're still not going. You're still not going. There's one slight question that you asked, and it came from what the discussions some elements of the discussion you had earlier, and that really piqued my interest. But before you make your contribution, in the next 1 minute, we'll be doing our first poll. There's a series of polls that we will introduce into this session, this conversation. We're introducing these polls for us to create an awareness for us to understand to what extent Nigerians are aware of the DLT and what precisely. And so we'll have a series of polls. You talked about, from the last time you did research work on the demography of investors, that the average age was 55. That really is quite old. With a young population like Nigeria, one would have expected a much younger demography. And the good thing about the younger demography is that they are tech savvy. So, like you rightly pointed out, they engage in a variety of things. They invest Chaka, they invest in other platforms, they invest in other instruments, cryptocurrencies, and all that. So, what channels can we use to convey the importance of DLT to this younger generation, to make them promoters and perhaps advancers of the ideas that relate to DLT? Because currently, this generation of baby boomers, they have the money, obviously, but they don't have the time. They're gradually fading out. It's inevitable, it's life. And so how do we get this younger generation interested in some of the issues we're discussing currently? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So yes, I did mention something about the average age of investors, which I said was about 55. I think maybe 53 and a half.
Did you hear?
Yes, I got the question, sir. So I did mention something about the average age of investor on the market, which I had said was about 55. I think if I recall correctly, it must have been about 53 and a half, which is almost 55. And yes, it's a very valid question. How do we capture this younger generation, this younger demography? How do we bring them into this market? So I think that first things first is to identify what interests them, is to identify exactly where their interest lies. We see what they're doing with the cryptos and all of that. And the question should be, why are they, putting their money in that space? Why are they not coming to this market? If we begin to identify what differentiates that space from ours, we can begin to understand what exactly the problems are and begin to solve. So, for example, I mentioned something as basic as settlement cycle. Why wait for 3 days when you can do instantaneous settlement? No, a young man of 18-year-old would want to drop his money and have to wait for 3 days to take delivery of whatever it is that he has bought, when he knows he can get it almost instantly. So these are the conversations. Another area I think is access to market. An average person of the younger demography today lives here. They live here on a daily basis. Their devices, this mobile phone is a powerful infrastructure. Everything they do starts and ends on this device. The question is, how do they access this market today? Are there opportunities for us to look at as a market holistically in terms of how we can give them access to market? So these are some of the conversations. The beauty of what DLT provides, the way I see it, is that in DLT, we're able to achieve some of the things that they currently in this space that is of interest to them. And if we can begin to apply it to our own market, then we can begin to change some of those narratives, and I think that this is where thinking innovation, comes as a responsibility for all of us as market participants. And if we don't look at it, through the same lens, and move in a concerted manner towards resolving some of these issues, we'll all be hurt in the end. And I think that to be having this kind of conversations today, having this kind of webinar being put up by Proshare, I think is a very brilliant idea. And I give my credit to the Proshare team for putting this together. These are the kind of conversations we should be having in the market at this time. I think that there's a whole lot that we have, a lot of work that we have to do. But the good thing is that we're on the right path, and we only need to consolidate on some of these steps that we've taken so far. And I hope that addresses your question, sir. Thank you.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you very much, Mr. Yahaya. The good thing about it, why I'm also quite happy, is we have the CEO of Sophus here. He was the erstwhile chief executive of the OTC, the NASD OTC market. And so issues like this, how they're going to, as an operator, how they're going to encourage a younger demography to actually buy into the concept of a youthful market is going to be critical. But before I call on Mr. Bola Ajomale to present his paper, I want to call on the technical crew to put up the first poll. Could you kindly put up the first poll, please? Yes, so the question is, do you understand what distributed ledger technology is about? Yes, no, somewhat. All those in on this session to kindly answer so that we have a sense of what the gap is. And then people like Mr. Yahaya, people like Dr., people like Mr. Ajomale can begin to understand the challenges they face in encouraging a strong demography to participate in this market and to create value. Okay. I think we've had enough time to fill the poll. It's my pleasure, great pleasure, to introduce Mr. Bola Ajomale to this platform because he's had tremendous industry experience. It's a kind of experience very few people have the opportunity to share. I'm sure we will enjoy his presentation, and from the wealth of his knowledge, we'll perhaps get a context into how the market can move forward. Just a brief about Mr. Ajomale. Mr. Bola Ajomale is currently the managing director of Sophus Consulting Limited, a wholesale capital markets consulting service focused on deepening African capital markets. You see, Mr. Ajomale has left us in Nigeria. He's gone continental, so he's now an African consultant, and that's really great. Mr. Bola Ajomale is a capital market professional who has worked fastidiously in the finance industry, both local and abroad, for over 30 years. His experience covers accounting, stockbroking, investment banking, syndications, asset management, capital market regulation, and fintech. He has a deep passion for innovating to expand the depth of the capital market and funding access to SMEs. Mr. Bola Ajomale read economics with a major in accounting in the University of Leeds in West Yorkshire, United Kingdom, and graduated in 1984. He has over 30 years continued to provide service to his community in the areas of finance and advice. He has gathered over 15 years of chief executive experience as he pioneered 2 major startups. As a leader, he demonstrated strong visionary problem-solving and communication skills. I can attest to this. I've had the good fortune of having discussions with Mr. Ajomale in the past. Last year, he was on this webinar, and we had very useful conversations. Thankfully, he's back again to share 30 years of wisdom. That's what I call it, 30 years of wisdom. Mr. Bola Ajomale, the floor is yours. Mr. Bola Ajomale will be talking about online trading, the age of distributed ledger, the doubts, the pains, and the opportunities that are evidently in this space. Thank you, Mr. Ajomale. I hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Morning, and thank you for the kind words and also for inviting me to be part of this. I do have some slides. I can present them from my end, or it can be put up from yours, whichever one. Okay, please confirm you can see my screen. What I have done is I have, as you rightly said, migrated away from the practice front end of the market and gone more into consulting and also into understanding the environment we have, especially regarding DLT. And so one of the first things we did was we did a survey of the market, and that's an ongoing survey that is open to gauge our atmosphere, our temperature. Are we heating up? Are we cooling down? Not only, and what Sophus concentrates on is the digital transformation that needs to take place, enabling parties to reach that state that they need to. Of course, before you can help someone, you need to understand what the issue is. So what we did was we took a look at the capital market in West Africa, but in particular in Nigeria. For each country, we do a research first of all, and I just want to share some of the results with us. I understand that most of us are capital market operators in this webinar. So rather than concentrating on our clients, I think we should look at ourselves probably first and see how ready we are for online trading. The good news, and I'm just trying to move my slides up. The good news is that the market has a positive attitude. No one thinks that it's a passing fad that will pass. Everyone believes that it must come and it's come to stay. Everyone believes that it requires new regulation as well. And a fair deal, about 35%, 36% of the people we sampled. This is a relatively small sample of about 100 to 200 operators and players in the market. So this is these are the results that we got from them. It's expected to be an industry revolution, and it's assumed that it's not going to be individual effort, it's going to be a collective effort from all the players in the industry for it to work properly. So rather than any one individual company zooming ahead and taking the whole market, it would succeed better if there is a collective approach to it. The next thing that we noticed or that we assessed was, and again, that speaks directly to this webinar, what are the advantages and what's in it for anyone or any of the players in the market? There's something for everyone. I just highlighted investors and put them on top because that's what we're talking about. For investors, the main advantages are that one, they have a new asset class, and I'm happy to hear Mr. Yahaya speaking about the young people and what they require. I'm not sure they're particularly excited about equities and bonds anymore. And I heard doctors speaking about NFTs and fractionalization and tokenization. It is absolutely critical, and I totally endorse that, because right now, in your portfolio, you want to have a bit of real estate. In your portfolio, you want to have a bit of some dollar-denominated investment instrument as well, or some kind of hedge instrument against the devaluation that's taking place. So even a saving instrument against when, if you possibly want to exit the country either permanently or temporarily, you want some kind of instrument. We're seeing gold instruments coming into the market, commodity instruments coming into the market. DLT, what it does is it makes all these instruments more accessible. It makes them more flexible to each person's pocket as well. Again, another great opportunity that it brings for investors is that it brings in the possibility of cross-border trading. It brings in, it unites them from one market to another without going through and without CS to invest in some instruments in other countries. And so it's making the world smaller. It's creating the possibility of multi-jurisdictional investments, which is what investments will require as well. Again, it helps with the issue of liquidity. We've heard a bit about T+3 moving to T+1 and possibly even T+0. There are some practical reasons why a T+0 might not be the best idea, but DLT makes it possible for us to achieve a T+0. Of course, for the other players, I've got them in a lighter color where it directly affects them, for regulators, for infrastructure, for issuers, investment banks, brokers, registrars, asset managers, and so on. There's a little for everyone, a lot for everyone actually, in terms of processes and so on. But the major one that I think is unique to investors is the opportunity of cross-border investments. What kind of solutions does DLT bring? The people we spoke to are it was a fairly broad and fairly balanced response regarding that. Of course, it reduces risk. Of course, it creates the possibility of more information, better information, faster information, more reliable information. It creates the possibility of interoperability, increases market liquidity, and overwhelmingly, everyone thought that it would increase the speed of the market. Personally, I don't think speed is the most critical aspect. I think the most critical issues that DLT would, as a person who compiled the report, I'm happy to disagree. I can disagree with the responses. I think the major, some of the major contributions DLT will have in our market is the issue of risk, is the issue of interoperability. I think those are the two major issues that DLT will face in this market. But then again, for each user of DLT, it's only limited. What the user can put it to and the solution you can create out of it is only limited by your own imagination. So for as long as you can imagine it, with DLT, it is achievable. Now, where are we and how fast are we moving? We're not moving quickly at all. We are very pensive about it. No operator said they are, or that's in another slide, but how likely, and we asked this a very specific question of operators, how likely are you to lead the charge? Not only operators in terms of brokers and investment banks, but also, investors, PFAs, and so on. How likely are you to lead the charge in DLT? Or are you more likely to follow? Quite a few, because of competition, said they were they're very happy to lead market trends. And that's possibly because they've discovered some area where they can apply it to. We were recently speaking to one operator in the market, and I won't say what segment of the market they're in, but we were talking to one operator in the market, and they have actually set up a digital innovation team. That's what they're called. And the digital innovation team is considered to be just as important as the market development or the business development team. So some companies are moving very quickly in that direction and are identifying use cases. So once you identify a use case, then you're more convinced that you want to move quickly on it. However, of the unlikelies, because we dug deeper, and those who said they are very unlikely, especially in that category, a couple of the respondents that we spoke to, they said the reason why they're unlikely to want to lead is because they believe that it's an industry movement. And if it is not an industry-wide digital transformation, it will end up being very confusing. People will not know the difference between A and a B, just like some people heard the term crypto and started jumping on crypto, and a lot of them lost their money in FTX. So it should be, they believe it should be a coordinated program that is coordinated by a team or a group that is all-encompassing, that considers all sides. Again, the reason why it needs to be a coordinated program is because, or I'll get to that, but because of the different signals we're hearing from different regulators. Legacy is going to be a major issue. And again, because my brother just spoke before me, and my other brother spoke before me, again, before him, both CSCS and NGX have invested significant amounts in technology. There is a likelihood, or it has been shown as fact, that the more you invest in technology, or the more you have sunk in technology, the more likely you are to want to continue to use that technology in order to justify your investment. It is only logical. And so that worldwide tends to slow down the change into new technology because you have already invested a lot of it. You can imagine if you have got a technology, and I deliberately put such a large system, a large, I can't remember what they're called now, desktop with floppy drives and so on. If you have invested in a whole building made up of those, it's not likely that you're going to go and buy some new laptops when laptops come. You'd want to maximize the use of that equipment first. So changing legacy systems is either too risky because we're not sure, we've tested this one and we're comfortable with it and we don't want to change, or it is too complex, or it is too costly to junk the old legacy systems you have. That's one pain that we are all going to have to go through on the capital market. The second is that we also need to look at the people. Employees would see their jobs being threatened. Some will have the pain of having to unlearn what they know and their processes and relearn them. Others will find they cannot even cope with the learning. And then you'll have some new people who are coming in who are already ahead of the game. And so you have to build systems and structures to make sure you cover that risk of new entrants who are moving faster and thinking totally differently from the existing system from what the existing system can handle. And a typical example of it is what has happened between 2020 and 2021. By the time the world opened up again, people are now looking for remote work. That's a change to the system. Suddenly, people are not interested in waking up in the morning, putting on a tie and going to a building that's 26 kilometers away, when they can wear their pajamas, go downstairs and immediately log on to work. So there's going to be that change, that constant change that's going to keep coming, and all operators and investors are now looking at investing 24/7, 24 hours in the day. So there are going to be those changes that will have to come, that will change our habits, that will have to change our systems, that DLT will bring, and we need to brace ourselves for it. The survey covered who are the drivers, and it was unanimous, almost, at least 70%, almost 80% of the respondents said either infrastructures and exchanges or operators like brokers and so on are likely to be the drivers of this change. And the second, both numbers at the top reflect that. And I'm happy to say that the regulators have already started the race. They have, they're spearheading. They've come up with rules on digital assets. They came up with the rules in May this year. Right now, I'm actually speaking from Abuja, where we are working with the SEC on how to operationalize those rules. So very soon, those rules are going to become fully operational, where there's a full interpretation and the market is ready to move. Now, the regulators have moved. Operators, intermediaries, however, have not yet shown much, or we haven't come across too many operators who have said, we have started working with these rules. So there's a bit of a slowdown. The regulator in this instance is actually moving faster than the operators and the market forces. It's a weird situation, but I believe that should change. It should be the operators who should be pushing the regulator to make changes. But we're in a situation right now where the regulator has moved, and now the operators we're waiting for the operators to catch up. But to buttress that, I know that some exchanges, or we're aware that some exchanges have started looking at the niche products that they can create, they can run off the system. So it's just a matter of getting those operators, those intermediaries in the middle, and the investors, getting them ready. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of education, in terms of building knowledge. On leadership, there was a general, there was confusion. There was a general confusion as to, we don't know who's leading, we don't know who is running the ship, we don't know where do we turn to for direction. There was a time in the country, and I counted, I think it was around August this year or July this year, where there were at least, within a month, there were at least 10 different fintech, DLT, blockchain, markets-related webinars, different ones all over the country. Some of them were 1 hour, some of them were full-day programs, but there was no one cohesive program. So what you hear in one, you might hear a bit of it in another, or a conflict in another, but it wasn't coordinated or cohesive. Most of the respondents said they don't know anyone who's leading the initiative, or who's leading digital transformation or digitalization, or who is talking, or who is the central place for DLT information. Most of them do not know where. All agreed that there needs to be better coordination. And what became very critical, and I think it was Yahaya who just mentioned it, is that there must be interoperability, otherwise there'll be confusion. I like the question that was just asked on whether you want to bring the clearing systems together to form one. What DLT does is the exact opposite. What it does is it allows for absolute fragmentation of the market under one secure roof, the technology, the platform. So you can actually have multiple clearing, and you can choose whichever one you want, because they all have, they are all on the same technology platform, but they have different standards of operation. Universal risk management is critical as well. There must be a way by which we can assess risk, and there must be risk assessors who are looking at this instrument is more risky than that one. This platform has got better standards than another. There must be some way of assessing risk. Otherwise, there will be losses, there will be mistakes made. Regulation as well, and I mentioned it earlier on, it must be cohesive, it must be consistent. it does not make sense for us to have a CBN saying anything crypto is banned, and as a bank you cannot touch it. And then the SEC is coming up with rules that that allow and define what are digital securities and how you can invest in them and how you can operate them. I am sure right now the pension industry will not even touch it because there's already confusion. And so if we're going to run with this market and broaden it, then run with it successfully, then regulation must be cohesive. They must agree with each other in a certain form. I think Malaysia actually created a body that is made up of all the stakeholders, brought them into the same room, into one team, and so they talk with one voice. Maybe that's what we need to do in the country to move forward with this narrative. My last slide, and I know I might be over my time. My last slide is just testing the level of knowledge that we have, and I like the question that was just asked, that what kind of level of knowledge do we have? From our survey, we've 60% of those who responded said, yeah, they have average to above average knowledge of DLT. I'm sorry, that's supposed to be DLT. I asked for a poll. Can we just take a quick poll and take the report of that and take the results of that poll? I don't know whether we can put it up just now. And the poll is basically, yeah. So the poll says blockchain and DLT are the same. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or are you not sure? If you can just take a minute, just click one and send it in, and let's just look at the answers first. It's interesting to see what the response would be. I'll just give it a few minutes. It doesn't take long, just to click on it, agree, disagree, or not sure. And essentially, what we're trying to figure out is, do people use those terms synonymously, or they use them interchangeably, right? They use the terms cryptocurrency, and in fact, when you say anything blockchain, immediately everyone says crypto, and they talk about cryptocurrencies. It's like when you say you want to buy Indomie, immediately people know exactly what you're talking about. So just to see what people think, I don't know whether we can just call up the results very quickly. It doesn't really matter whether it's complete. It's just a quick check for us. Is it possible to get the results? If there are any responses, and if not, I can move on.
No, just give us a minute. I think the responses have come in.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Ajomale, you can continue, but we are going to definitely give the results. We'll give the results very shortly.
So most of the time when you say, okay.
Yeah, the results are.
Okay, we've seen it. So 13%, is that? 13% say they agree that DLT and blockchain are the same. 47% disagree, and 40% are not sure. Fine. Now, that is a true reflection of how that reflects on these numbers. So of the 60% who say they have average or above average knowledge of DLT, they are probably, among them would be some who believe they know enough about it because, they're the same thing. Well, in actual fact, and I'll just go a bit forward, in actual fact, since 2019 alone, there are at least 5, well, as of 2019, let me not say since, as of 2019, there were at least 5 different types of DLT, of distributed ledger technology, of which blockchain, for example, Bitcoin is one. You then have Hashgraph, you have directed acrylic graph, you got Holochain, you got Tempo. And since 2019, when everybody entered into the garages in 2020 and didn't come up until 2021, since that time, there have been a whole load more. These are the ones these are some of the ones that came up that were around in 2019 that are still around now. But between 2020 and now, even more have come in, different types of DLT. They've come in, some of them have survived, some of them have crashed, and it's continuing to evolve. So when you say, I have far above average knowledge of DLT, be careful. Maybe what you're referring to is blockchain, Bitcoin. Meanwhile, there are loads more. I will stop at that point. I know I might have gone a bit over my time, but I just want to stop by commending Proshare in contributing to building this body of knowledge. There's a lot of work to be done. From our point of view, we're available to assist the market in building that knowledge and also transforming into the digital space. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak at this, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ajomale. I didn't expect anything less. Very insightful. It provides the basis for expanding conversation within the ecosystem, where we see operators as well as regulators and other parties coming together to have a useful conversation around DLT. But I can't let you disappear immediately. I do need you to just answer at least one question now. And that's the question on, you talked about fintech. We've seen fintech very active in the money market, so to say. Mainly payment solutions, maybe some agricultural investment schemes. We've seen them doing some equity, the likes of Chaka and all that. So yes, fintechs have been quite active there. But in the capital, why would you think that's the case? What's the problem with the capital market relative to the money market?
I wouldn't say it's a problem. I would say it's more a reflection of the structure of the money market in comparison to the structure of the capital market. Money market, everybody moves money. The woman in the market, the pensioner, the school kid at school.
I think the network has frozen a bit.
Or, on a minute-by-minute basis. So that's the first thing. There's a lot more volume that's going into payments, and there are more problems with payments, and people are more concerned about payments. If I live in a place where there's no stockbroker, for example, I'll wait until I drive into Lagos and I'm going to go and see my stockbroker. That would happen until the fintechs apply the same kind of ingenuity and innovation into the investment structure. You will see more activity on the payment side clearly. So it's natural that would happen. Would the fintechs help? Of course, it would help. If you think about it, a lot of investments have been done by the youngsters, by the younger generations in so-called investment instruments outside this jurisdiction with no understanding of the instrument, with no understanding of the risk or the return or the underlying asset or the expected returns. Essentially, they have been gambling money on fintech. So fintech is not the problem. It is the instruments that we are supposed to make available in this industry, in this country. That's what we need to work on. The marketing of it by our players, the presenting of information. And during the time when the crypto investment industry was growing and booming, and again, I would offend many if I said the cryptocurrency industry is a Ponzi scheme. I'm sure I would offend many people if I said that. So I will not say that. But what I would say is that there is an untold amount of risk in that industry because it just does not, it exists on hype. But you've got investment instruments and investment opportunities in Nigeria across board. What we need to do as operators is package those investment opportunities into something that is digestible and applicable in the fintech industry and present it to people, and I'm sure there'll be responses. So there's a lot of work for us to do on our side.
Some elements of Generation Z. Now, how do you think the investment environment is likely to flesh out given the questions of DLT? Now, we're seeing an old generation is not interested in technology, interested in standard old kind of investments, real estate, equity, and some other short-term instruments like that. No, some other short-term instruments. But we're seeing a younger generation that really is interested in something that is quote unquote sexy, more attractive, more interesting, but they don't have the money.
Okay. All right. So I get that question, and the question essentially is the young want exciting investment opportunities. In fact, they don't even want it's not even investment opportunities they want. They want fast return, fast turnover, quick cash, now money. And the older people who grew up on the dividend return kind of dividend yield atmosphere are the ones who are holding the purse and the wallet. Well, that's true, and that is the fact of things. It is a shame that Nigeria has not empowered its youth to be more prosperous, because if they were more prosperous, they would have more money in their hands. But where would the money go? The money would probably go into those sexy instruments. Yes, that is true. Now, I think, one, again, the market needs to start packaging things that make sense for them. I think just like the pension industry has been able to capture the imagination. I remember when I was young, very young, starting work, I don't think the first thing that occurred to me was build my pension plan. I'm not sure that was the first thing that crossed my mind. It was buying the flashiest car. But as time went on, of course, pensions became more interesting. How do we make it so? And now you would find many young people building their pensions in some form or another. I think it's a matter of, there's a lot of work that needs to be done from the industry, and stick on that. But I think we also need to package investment opportunities in a way that makes it interesting for the times. No matter what kind of return you have made from the investments over the last couple of years, by the time you dollarize it, you probably are not ahead. So maybe we should start packaging investment instruments that actually hedge against that. I don't know how. I'm sure there's some financial engineers here who can put those together. But unless you tell people this will not lose on the Nigeria side, or if Nigeria revalues, you will still be ahead, then those kind of instruments would be interesting. If you tell people to, again, a lot to do with the structure of the country, if you told people to invest in petroleum options, for example, maybe that would be an interesting idea. Somebody creates an option on petroleum or an option on gold or so on, and those options are tradable internationally, then it becomes interesting. And I'm sure many young people want to get into it. So again, we need to move away from the traditionals. The traditionals were good for a traditional set of people. The young people want something that is not only fashionable, but also yielding a certain kind of volatility. Create those instruments. It's up to us to create.
Okay, Mr. Ajomale, I want to thank you for your responses. I guess a few questions have come up. Well, we will ask them later so that we can go on to the next speaker, who is Mr. Yusuf Oguntola. Mr. Yusuf Oguntola is the Chief Technology Officer of AFEX. I'm particularly interested in agriculture, so I'm really interested in knowing how DLT is likely to shape my agricultural investments. Mr. Oguntola is a first-class graduate of computer science, who is an experienced software developer. He has developed and deployed software solutions ranging from desktop to mobile and enterprise solutions using software best practices. He has more than 5 years of professional work experience working for and with several organizations ranging from SMEs to multinationals. Mr. Yusuf is currently the Chief Technology Officer of AFEX, where he is currently overseeing the development and dissemination of technology for external customers, vendors, and other clients to help improve and increase business. Mr. Oguntola, it's a pleasure having you here. It's I'm really excited you coming on this platform, because I've really wondered how Nigeria's agricultural sector is going to plug in to the evolving technological development that is going on. As an asset class, agriculture is not really fashionable. It is fashionable from the perspective of policy for diversifying revenues of both subnationals and the national government. But as an investment class, it has not really taken off. So what would you say we do with the agricultural sector? But before you answer that question, please continue with your presentation. We are very delighted to have you on this platform. Mr. Oguntola.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. I am gladly honored to be in the midst of the indefatigable speaker that has spoken just before me. A lot has been said. I do have a few slides I would like to share and present. I believe it can be presented from your end, or I can also go ahead and to that from here. So the conversation has been interesting so far. I believe everyone on the call now, we all understand what DLT is and how it relates to the different segments of the ecosystem that has been discussed so far. We've heard things from the capital markets side of things. We've understood from the clearing and settlements angle. My brother from CSCS has done justice discussing that. And then we've also heard from our fathers in the industry. So it would be nice to also just add my voice on that. We've understood what DLT means to be a distributed ledger technology. And the conversation I was just going to add to it was the poll that the last speaker just said something about, because the DLT is now a buzzword. So when you say DLT, a whole lot of people are already thinking cryptocurrency, they're thinking blockchain, and several other things like that, right? However, because we are discussing technology, I'll just speak it from the point of it is quite important for us to evolve as the world is evolving. Technology is evolving globally. And just pointing back to the question you asked earlier around how do we expect to catch up with the global world? I believe while we are also catching up, technology is also still evolving, right? So it is not what it was 3-4 years ago. In the last 4 years, if we were having this conversation, we most likely don't have enough information to be able to engage in a real thoughtful conversation as to how do we even implement DLT, right? Now we understand from the last segment that DLT is way beyond just talking about blockchain. DLT is a suite of technology that gives us the mechanism and lays the foundation for us to build several other interesting technology out of it. We've had blockchain that has then laid the foundation for several cryptocurrencies. And in fact, the same issue still happens when you hear cryptocurrency versus blockchain today, right? When people hear blockchain, they immediately think that is cryptocurrency. Even though blockchain is a lot wider than cryptocurrency, there's been a lot of interesting tools that have been built on top of blockchain that has nothing to do with cryptos, right? Several exchanges today in the world have built their systems on top of the blockchain system. Several fintechs are using blockchain, and they are not doing cryptos, right? So it's interesting. It would be nice to understand the difference all of these technologies and really study the technology and see how can we use technology to solve the problems that are inherent in our own ecosystem. Now, delving into agriculture, right? How do we bring DLT into agriculture? And I want to sort of bring a microscopic view into what is happening in Africa so that we can use that to sort of understand what the inherent problems within the agricultural ecosystem is or are, and how we can then apply technologies like DLT into it. Someone has also mentioned Web 3.0 and several other interestingly evolving technologies that young people like myself, we are happy to hear about we are loving the fact that it's happening during our time. Maybe if it had happened in 1980s and the 70s, well, it wouldn't be scrappy now. It would have had some more interesting advancement that would have happened to it, right? So I was hoping the slide was coming up, right? Yeah, but so just moving on. So if you look at what we have in terms of crop production today within the agricultural ecosystem, it is a known fact to all of us that Africa, having a 1.4 billion population with an average growth rate of 2.4% per annum, is grossly affected by food insecurity. We produce far lesser than what we need to consume. And we now, unfortunately, store far lesser than we are able to produce. In fact, we store less than 10% of what we are able to produce. So our production is definitely not matching our consumption. There is about 60% gap between production and consumption. And between what is being produced and what is being stored, there is about a 90% gap again, which means a lot is being lost over there. Now, improving this yield, there are a number of things that needs to be done to be able to solve this problem. And the four key aspects that we look at this from is, number one, access to quality input for smallholder farmers. Since 60% of the sub-Saharan African population are still practicing subsistence farming, right? We have smallholder farmers. And when we say smallholder farmers, we're talking about farmers who only cultivate 1, 2, 3 hectares of farmland. Those are the people that are feeding us as it stands today. So we are looking at access to quality inputs. And what that does is it ensures that, number one, the farmers have access to improved seedlings. Some 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you plant a tree of cocoa, you are most likely expecting to wait till about 10, 15 years before you start thinking of getting something out of the pods or the trees that you have planted. But today, you now have seedlings that would give you cocoa within 2-3 years, and you are able to start cultivating or harvesting something from your farmland. The same thing is happening across all the other different key crops within the value chain. You have improved seedlings in maize, in soybeans, in millet, in rice, and several other crops out there. So if farmers have access to these improved seedlings, they'll be able to do more with the little farmland that they have. In addition to that is access to quality input, right? And these inputs now, I'm talking about fertilizers, I'm talking about urea, NPKs, and all of the other interesting manures and nutrients that the soil needs to be able to produce better than what we are currently producing, right? So when farmers have access to this, we definitely expect that their yields will definitely improve. The second one is access to finance. They need more money. Now, they need money to also buy this input, right? If the seedlings are available, they need to buy it, or they need a plan that ensures they get that input, probably as a loan, and they can repay when they harvest. They also need money to also increase their planting. This person probably has access to about 10, 15 hectares of land, but because he can only currently cultivate 2 hectares of that land because of that the capital he has access to, then the remaining 12, 13 hectares are lying fallow there doing nothing, right? So if the farmer has access to finance, he'll be able to improve his yields. Now, the third aspect to it is access to infrastructure. One of the reasons why we have a large deficit between our production and our consumption is the amount of produce that we lose to post-harvest losses. When the farmer are harvesting, they're not using the best possible technology they can use to harvest, right? They're losing something as soon as they're harvesting. They are moving this from the farmland to their houses. Sometimes that stays for several weeks or months before they then decide to take it to the market and then sell it. They've lost more than 50% of what they harvested the first day to post-harvest losses. implies that farmers need access to quality infrastructure, storage facility, logistics facilities to be able to reduce all of this and then even do better with the little yield that they've been able to actualize from the farming that they have. So that's the third focal point there. And the last one is access to markets. I have produced, I need to sell. So do we even have buyers who want to buy immediately? If I decide that I'm not willing to sell now, I want to wait till about 2-3 months down the line when I believe the price would have moved. Where do I put or store my grains or whatever I have produced? How do I store tomato? How do I store potatoes? How do I store pepper today? How do I store vegetables that I'm harvesting today? So looking at this from these 4 broad angles, it would sort of put a limelight or shadow light on what are the key problems within this sector. Now, how do we then solve this problem? How do we apply DLT to be able to effectively achieve all of this? There is a survey or a report that was released by McKinsey that immediately projects that if we are able to do some innovation around yield improvements, around land expansion, and around post-harvest loss reduction, we would immediately be able to add 155% to the current production statistics that we have within Africa. Now, what role would DLT now play in all of this that we have explained? Let me start from finance, access to finance to these farmers. If you ask most of the banks and financiers within this sector today, why have you not been pumping enough money into agriculture the same way you are pumping into other sectors? I hear you also say when you were opening this segment saying that agriculture is one interesting way that you would like to understand how things play out within that sector. So this is because there is a lot of misinformation, there is a lot of misunderstanding of what is going on within that sector. Financiers don't understand how they can hedge their risk in the sector. If I pump $3 million into agriculture, how am I even sure that the money is being spent well? What is the guarantee that I'm going to get my money back within the stipulated time, right? What are the available insurances that would be able to cushion the risk that are inherent within the sector? These are the different questions that financiers would love to have answered. Now, today, the only way you can get answers to those questions is for you to go and search online or then speak to people within the sector. Speak to players within the sector like AFEX and other key players within the sector, right? But if we implement tools that ride on interesting technologies like DLT, there'll be transparent and reliable and efficient way to access the information. And I'm close to being certain that the information I'm accessing today is real and is valid. Mr. Yahaya mentioned something around consensus mechanism that DLT is used to validate information that are posted around the ledgers within the technology, the distributed chain, right? This ensures that if AFEX, as an example, is adding a new information about a farmer in Katsina to the distributed ledger that we have, anybody accessing that information, in fact, before the ledger would even accept the information to come in, he had run some algorithm to be able to validate that the information is correct and is valid and it's usable for people within that network. And anybody can immediately access it. And as soon as you input that information onto the network, you're not able to modify it again. That gives some sort of reliability and efficiency to the information that's available on that particular network. So that way, financiers can come into the market, understand how they can play in, understand the risk in the market, understand how they can hedge that risk and how they can be able to create products that would solve for the problems within that sector. This is an underfinanced and underfunded sector today. One of the major players that are really funding today is the federal government, most likely because they have a larger heart to handle some of the risks, right? Some banks today are understanding how we can play. Today, the FX exchange system allows several banks to be able to lend to farmers using the crops the commodities that they have as collateral. So you have a commodity stored in an AFEX warehouse within our network of warehouses anywhere in Nigeria. You can immediately access finance using our COMEX platform today. And there are several financiers on that platform that are open to giving you finance. And that is because, at least to a large extent, people are now saying that this is not a Ponzi scheme. This is valid. This is real. It is open. There is transparency. You can immediately have access to years of data, of information of what has been happening within the space to be able to determine what is my money going to be used for? How would I recoup my money if something go haywire, right? So because this farmer that is cultivating has 20 metric tons of cocoa in one warehouse, these 20 metric tons of cocoa would be sold for, say, 5 million naira. But he needs 2 million naira to go into the next season and start farming. Nobody is going to give him that loan because they believe he has no collateral. But who says 5 million naira worth of cocoa is not a collateral? So this is some of the problems that technologies like this would help solve, right? Now, the other interesting aspect is access to markets. Now, there is AFCFTA that is not happening in Africa. How do I sell or how do I buy coffee that is produced in another part of Africa in Nigeria? We drink a lot of coffee in Nigeria today, but we produce less than 10% of the coffee that we drink. So how do we even do intra-country trade before getting inter-country? So technologies like DLT would ensure that trades can be done transparently and efficiently within different countries and within the same country as well. Because of time, let me just touch on the last few points. Right, access to infrastructure, DLT would make all of that easier. There is transparency, there is traceability as well. I want to be able to buy a bag of rice from the market and confirm where that rice is coming from. And with DLT, I can trace from when it was gotten out of the farm till when it was gotten to the plant where it was cleaned up, till when it was bagged, so whether or not it was rebagged, how it was transported, who has played within the value chain before it then goes to the supermarket or the market where I'm buying this bag of rice from. These are interesting solutions that are now coming up because of the advent of DLT, another interesting technology. So there are several investment opportunities in agriculture today. If you look at the different sectors, the key segments I've mentioned around access to inputs, capitals, fertilizers, hybrid seeds, and all of that. In terms of infrastructure as well, irrigation, storage, are several interesting places that people can spend money on. There's an $8 billion investment opportunity that can immediately go into storage today within Africa. Irrigation alone, there's an investment opportunity of around $65 billion available for people to push money into. And there has been several technology that has been built to ensure that these investments happen transparently. Lastly, some of the interesting stuff that AFEX has done to contribute to this ecosystem that will be worthy of mentioning here is that we've built several systems that ensures we are able to play right within the sector, which is one of the key reasons why success is happening to AFEX as an organization. Right, there is the mention of legacy systems from just the last presenter, right? And it's a very valid concern, because if you had spent $10 million subscribing into a technology solution, you are not likely going to change that solution, even if it wasn't working for you, except you have, I don't know, you need to have some very great reason to then say, I am ditching this and going into something else. And it's fair to say that in 99%, 100% of technology that AFEX run as an organization is inbuilt within the organization. They are proprietary software that we built within the organization, and we most likely have one of the largest tech team within the market, right? So managing the key risk, managing the logistics, farmer relationship, trade and payments, and several other functionalities and factors that needs to be done within this space. We have a system that we call Workbench that we've been using since 2018. It's an ERP And what we've now done is that the last 2 years, we figured that a lot of other key players are trying to come up, trying to build technologies, and they may not be able to do something as extensive as we've been able to achieve. And we've tested our own severally, and we can say that it's reliable enough, right? So what we did back then was to then convert the system to a software as a service, and then put it online for people who want to use it to then have access to it and immediately be able to set up their own companies and use the workbench system as it is. So today, anybody can go on to workbench.exchange and access workbench. So there is trading opportunity on ComX and several other platforms that we have there, right? I'm guessing that ComX is one of the platforms that actually started 24/7 trading within this space. A lot of people believed it was almost impossible for you to have a trading engine that runs 24/7 and you're able to settle and do end of day and do beginning of day and be able to close your books and all of those stuff. But we said we were going to do this, and we've been running this for more than 2 years, and investors have been laughing and smiling to the bank. So these are some of the interesting stuff that you see that will come to play when we engage advanced technologies like DLT. And it's also quite important that we have conversations like this where we are able to explore what are the other different opportunities that are available and untapped within the ecosystem. So that's saying kudos to Proshare for hosting a webinar as this and putting together this set of panelists. The information that I believe viewers will be able to go back home with will be enormous and endless. So I'll pause here for now in case you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oguntola. It's quite informative, actually. With the country pushing very hard towards developing the agricultural sector, it's obvious that we need to step up the game. And you've explained very eloquently how DLT has been useful in scaling agricultural activities. Because we need to manage time a bit, I want to take this opportunity to introduce Madam Chinwe Ekeh of the NASD OTC. She's been waiting patiently. I'm sure, my sister, you'll be wondering why you didn't follow Oga immediately. I did it deliberately because I didn't want two NASD people speaking one after the other. So I said, let me mix it up a bit and break it. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much. But before you speak, I think let me give a brief insight into who Chinwe Ekeh is. Chinwe Ekeh is skilled in process, product, and software development with over 10 years experience in CSD operations, capital market dynamics, product delivery, and deployment. Currently head of market operations and information technology at NASD OTC Securities Exchange. She specializes in seeing product software through all stages of product and market development. Chinwe is a graduate of computer science from the Yaba College of Technology. She proceeded to obtain her master's degree in business administration from Business School of Netherlands, also master's in information technology, and currently her doctorate program in business administration with a research focus on distributed ledger technology. So you can see why we brought in Chinwe. Right? She is an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, member of the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, United Kingdom. Chinwe, it's an absolute pleasure having you speak with us this afternoon. So I yield the floor to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, moderator, for the introduction. So the interesting thing about speaking last is everybody gets to do all the hard lifting for you, and then you just ride on all they have said. So my name is Chinwe Ekeh. I work with NASD PLC. Please confirm you can hear me and you can see my slides.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your slide.
Okay, thank you. So I work with NASD. NASD is the over-the-counter securities exchange for trading on unlisted public securities. During the course of this presentation, I will be speaking on distributed ledger, same as everybody has done, but with a focus on NASD's product offering, a little about our process, and of course, how it will work or impact on the people. During the course of the presentation, I will look at briefly some gaps that I have identified. Interesting enough, a number of the speakers have touched on those areas. I will just, talk little about it again to save time. I also like to commend everyone for staying this long. It's been 2 hours, so I thank you for being patient with us on this session. So I will then describe what NASD has done or is doing with blockchain and try to benchmark it with the rule on digital issuance of digital assets that our regulator has released in May this year. So everyone has talked about distributed ledger technology, and the poll also, made me to maybe look at another perspective on how to define DLT. So I'll just give an example. I think if you've used Google Doc during the course of your work, your Google Doc document is stored locally on your system, but every other party whom you have shared the link to has access to either edit that document or can view that document. That's what distributed ledger technology does. The data is stored in one location, but everybody has access. A lot of people can have access to that data or that information across different locations or from different parts of the world. So that's distributed ledger technology in summary. Now, blockchain. So blockchain is simply a means to store information in a way that it is going to be difficult or impossible to edit it or to change it or to tamper with it. Blockchain itself uses DLT such that even though that information is not editable or tampered with by anybody, it is still available to everybody to access. So blockchain rides on DLT. So I hope that helps to, bring all the definitions that my previous speaker have spoken on. Now, look at the picture on my slide. You could see the center image there that has a transaction. So in blockchain, information is stored in blocks. So in that block, you have the information you want to pass across, perhaps to the receiver of that information. You have the sender where the information is coming from. You have the person who is receiving that information, and then maybe some other data to do validation and all that. But that single block is linked to a lot of other blocks, maybe the preceding blocks, and then the next block coming after that information will also be linked to each other. That's how blockchain works. But if you look at that image, you could see that there's a transaction there. Bella has $40, he has given John $20, and John is giving Elsa $20. So that transaction history, that information is stored on blockchain. Nobody can tamper with that information. Nobody can change that information, but everybody on that network can see that information. There's transparency, there's trust, there's security, and everybody is assured of that transaction. That's a summary in a nutshell what DLT and blockchain is. So this next slide, I would like to leverage on a lot of the comments that explanations that the previous speakers have talked about, but I want to look at it from the investor point of view. So a typical investor who is coming to the capital markets, minimally, you need at least 2 things. You need to have an account with a stockbroking firm, and you also need to have a local bank account, for cash deposits and for withdrawal. In the capital market terminology, we say it's settlement, which is what our dear CSCS, Yahaya, has spoken about. They ensure that the cash you get from selling your shares or whatever assets you will be selling, you get it into your account, or you also deposit from there. Now, on this scenario that I'm talking about, the challenge I want to bring to bear is that at the beginning, for every investor, if you decide to have 2 or 3 stockbroking firms, you are going to be required to provide your KYC data. Now, your KYC data is going to be stored with that individual stockbroking firm. Everybody will have its own copy of your own data. This is a problem because we are not assured of, say that information has not been tampered with, or there's no change to that information. Again, the issue here is that in the ecosystem, don't forget, whatever data they capture for you, it goes down to every other intermediary in the capital market system. But we have to move that data across each of these systems. So there's no central storage of that data. That's one problem. But just as the previous speaker has highlighted on DLT, what DLT provides, and the example I gave earlier, what DLT provides is that this information will be stored in one location, and every stakeholder on the market or every intermediary on the market can access that information. So that's one problem that I think blockchain readily can solve for us and DLT. So that's on that aspect. So that's number one question here. So will take away duplication of records, will take away issues around data identity, will take away issue around tampering, there's trust and all that. Another point I would like to talk about briefly is looking at cost. Doctor mentioned it, Yahaya also mentioned it, where we talked about how Mr. Ajomale also mentioned that transaction costs will be reduced. Now, let me try to explain why transaction cost is currently high. Depending on the number of people you have to work with during the course of your trading activity, you work with your broker, you work with your registrar, you work with CSCS, of course, you work with the exchange. This number of intermediaries that you have to work with, you have to pay them for their service. But if we then adopt DLT or blockchain as the market, so this reduces that number of extra work because you're actually paying me for the work that I have done for you, and then maybe taking it to the next step of the phase in the transaction. But because all of us will have that data in one location, people can use that data and be assured that what they are having access to is a validated data across business processes. So that's one way we think at NASD, we think that when we adopt DLT and blockchain, transaction costs will be reduced on the market. Roughly right now, I guess everybody is paying about 3 or 4% of transaction costs. We're looking at the end of the day, we're trying as much as possible to bring more value for our investors in the market. Another issue that I think blockchain would help us to solve is issues around reconciliation, issues around transactional history, maybe also resolve unauthorized trades and some of other little issues that we have. This is because blockchain is immutable. Transactions on it can be traced. Remember I said a block is linked to each other. The last speaker also mentioned you can trace where something is coming from, where it is at the moment, what is the status, what is the quality. So because all of these records are available in one location, you are assured that reconciliation is correct. It's easy to do reconciliation. Everybody has the same thing, so you can easily know what is what and what will be the next step. So that's some of the benefits. Okay, lastly, there's this issue of smart contracts. Right now in our ecosystem, there are rules and regulations. Each of these intermediaries have to enforce these rules and regulations within their own sphere. But if we adopt DLT and blockchain, a lot of these rules around trading, issuance, corporate actions can actually be programmed onto the system, and they would execute by themselves without any human intervention. That way you can see a more structured, a more improved market, more efficient market for our country or for the capital market. So in summary, these are some of the benefits. There's a lot more, but these are all the benefits I think blockchain and DLT can bring to the system. So I'll just skip this because this is a lot of the benefits that the previous speakers ahead of me have spoken on. So I'll take that advantage and run quickly. Now, what is NASD doing with blockchain or DLT and DLT? So what do we hope to bring to the market? We hope to bring an ecosystem solution that essentially will provide a platform that will list, trade, clear, and settle digital securities. Our products or our offering would start from the primary market process and end with the secondary trading market process. So in that sense, if you look at the image there, from the issuer to the exchange, to the investor with the brokers, with the custodians, with the depository, and everybody with the regulator. You can see the regulator at the top also having taken up its surveillance role. So our hope is that by the time we fully get into the system, we have an ecosystem solution that everybody can interface with that data stored on the blockchain, on the DLT, across whatever locations, across whatever stakeholder you are, and whoever you are in the system. So as an exchange for us, NASD, our objective would be to provide a fair, orderly, and efficient market for the trading of tokenized digital securities. And by that, I mean assets. So most of the assets we have, as mentioned earlier, would then be digitized and securitized for trading. So in this vein, we hope that we'll be able to support digital issuance and offering process for securitized assets, whether real estate or whatever form, as long as it's securitized. We'll also be able to provide stakeholders in the ecosystem with channels for self-interaction with the system. So we expect that going forward on that blockchain, you can trade for yourself. Every party on the ecosystem can access this information stored on the blockchain. We can all work together to achieve things in faster time with minimal corrections or intervention. And then we'll also be able to support trading, clearing, and settlement on the blockchain. So on this next slide, remember I mentioned that blockchain allows you to store data in a way that it can be tampered with. And the example I started with on investors, your data, your KYC data is essentially everything about you. Now, the problem we have at the moment is it's prone to tampering, is prone to errors during the process of transferring from perhaps your stockbroker's system or technology to the CSCS technology or to the exchange technology. We're hoping that once information, we're going to use blockchain and DLT to capture institutional information, both from the investor's point of view down to the institution's point of view, such that once this information is captured onto the blockchain, it cannot be tampered with, it cannot be changed. So you are sure that your identity is secure. Whatever information there's no longer going to be an issue of around identity theft. This issue of unauthorized transactions will not be possible because blockchain itself will verify your identity using some mechanisms such as public keys and private keys. We're also looking at providing a T+1 settlement. Mr. Ajomale mentioned that a T+0 settlement is actually not ideal. I do agree with him. We'll be starting with a T+1 settlement, but blockchain allows us to have real and instant settlement cycle as well. Again, our system is going to ensure that your data, once captured once by perhaps one of the participating institution or stockbroking firm on the technology, is going to be available for every other party to use. And we'll also be looking at providing self-services, e-portals, digital assets or channels, using your phones, using your tablets, using any internet-enabled media to access the market for any transaction that you wish to take on the market going forward. So in summary, this is exactly how NASD think we can all leverage, or we can leverage on DLT to provide a digital securities platform to list, trade, and clear digital assets. So as I promised, I will not take much of your time. I'll just round up with this last slide that talks about how we think using the rules that the SEC, the regulator, has released in May to on digital assets trading, or on digital assets as securities, how what NASD has done can help you wherever, whoever person or stakeholder you are, either you are the issuing house or an investor, or the regulate, in whatever capacity you will be acting in. So our platform is going to help you to develop your white paper. Your white paper is similar to your prospectus. So at the moment, if you want to develop your prospectus, you have to print out lots of documents. There's so much editing, carrying back and forth between the relevant stakeholders in the system or in the business process. But with that solution, and again with blockchain, this process will be automated. There will also be a real-time support. There will also be a support for real-time engagement. So instead of having to send those documents across your emails or having to physically take those documents to the person you wish to work with on that process, it's going to have real-time support. Remember, I mentioned the Google Doc analogy. So everybody on that business process can work together real-time, irrespective of your location. So what this gives to us is a faster turnaround time. There's transparency, there's trust, there's cost management. So these are some of the things we think is very important for the ecosystem to look at when we are adopting DLT. Again, our solution in a way would also provide us with best practices and on how to generate your rules or using vetted templates and formats. Also, we're also going to have a complete compliance to trading and investment limits as the regulator has required or shared with us in their rules. They also have tools for KYC, AML check. So, you know, the issue of identity is very important in the capital market because it's people's investments, it's people's hard-earned money. So using DLT and using blockchain and also our solution, we have live tools that we can use to verify identity of whoever will be engaging on that platform. So this is a summary of all of the benefits. I hope I've been able to answer one or two questions that the speakers before me did not touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chinwe. Being the only lady in the house here, you have shown extreme management skills. You've managed your time well. You've conveyed the message succinctly, clearly, crisply. I didn't expect anything less anyway. It's the NASD, right? So, but I just have a quick question here. One of the things that Proshare has been doing has been advocating that the governments of Nigeria, both at the national and subnational levels, should think about putting some of their assets on using some of the advantages of DLT. Could we encourage them to come onto the exchanges? And one reason why it's important is when you look at what happened with Saudi Aramco. The Saudis just decided to list just a fraction of Aramco on the New York Stock Exchange. And we saw the massive values that were churned out as a result of that listing. And so you could place a price on Saudi Aramco. If we do that for a couple of Nigerian public sector entities, on establishing that price, we can now decide to leverage the values of those assets and use them for what we call financialization, raising money to plug some of the holes that we currently see in our fiscal space. So I'm saying, can DLT actually work on an OTC platform to encourage public sector listings?
Okay, so DLT will work. So firstly, I would like to speak from the perspective of the people who want to approach to bring their assets because it's their money. So the first thing because if I have to bring my assets or whatever funds I have to do, I have to be assured firstly of security. I have to be assured that I'm not going to lose my investment, because so what we need to do firstly is engagement. I also need to look at education and again regulation as well. So this forum is one of the ways through which we can educate people to let them understand the benefits. It's only until when people have seen the benefits and what they can do with it that they can agree to bring up those investments into the market. And then when again, Mr. Ajomale mentioned about where he says our operators need to start getting on board. They need to understand it firstly before they can start getting on board. So I would say that the solution to that is basically engagement, education, and then regulation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chinwe. I know you thought you were the last speaker, but actually I was surprised you are not the last speaker. We have one more speaker. He's Mr. Rotimi, and he comes from the LCFE, and that's a new exchange, right? They're more into commodities. We've seen them into hard commodities, basically. We've seen them into gold recently. That reminds me, Rotimi, I will collect some gold, after this session. I think this is a good time to have some gold, So he's Rotimi Ayodele-Oba. I'll give a brief profile of Rotimi. It's quite impressive. Rotimi Ayodele-Oba is the Chief Technology Officer of the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange. He's responsible for using information technology to drive growth, sustainability, and efficiency at the exchange. He holds a BSc in Computer Science from Ekeh State University, MSc in Information Technology from National Open University of Nigeria, an MBA specialization in Information Technology from Ulanovsk State University, Russia, and a certificate in Business Accounting from the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, UK. Also, over the years, he has completed several trainings and certifications, and he has been awarded over 23 information technology-related certifications. So we've got a real egghead here. As an IT business executive with over 10 years of work experience in planning, designing, deploying, and managing both simple and complex solutions, he has been able to drive value in multiple business sectors: finance, telecommunications, oil and gas, FMCG, and government-owned institutions. Rotimi, you're welcome to this platform. I saw you on the platform for quite some time, and I know that you've followed what other earlier speakers have said, and I'm sure you're going to add tremendous value to the subject matter. Rotimi, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Teslim. I also would acknowledge the various speakers that we've done for now. There's very little to add to what has been done. Quite a number of people. But briefly, because I think I have about 10 minutes, I hope to do less than that, because I will be spending time already. But on this call, I will briefly just talk about 5 things. I will relate digital economy to DLT, and then relate that to online trading. I will also talk about the role of technology in commodity ecosystem. I will talk about the position of our regulators on digital assets, that is said. I will also, lastly, or second to the last, talk about the current market sentiment, that doubt and pains on when it comes to in particular. Then I will lastly talk about the opportunities for Cananese using DLT in commodities exchange ecosystem. So basically, digital economy is going to evolve around. This has been about breaking the transfer and the ability to connect and use and analyze different amount of Basically, when we're talking about the economy, we're talking about the ability to digitalize and what the kinds of things that we do at our economy, that system, and we make various barriers. And then, like plenty other of our other speakers have done, they've done justice to explaining what technology, which is DLT, actually, nutshell, this is basically a technology that allows different entities, different organizations or silos to be able to relate the same record or the same database, be able to relate to the same system and letting the people able to, in real time, in information analysis. And in this can be utilized like we're talking about commodities and what do we mean by that? I heard a speaker from CSCS earlier saying that Yahaya saying somebody that works in CSCS and the person really understand what CSCS means. We don't share that pain. We don't go through that a number of times. The word commodities might not be very familiar. Part of what is held in Nigeria, but it's basically a platform that allows people to buy and to sell their commodities. Basically, buyers and sellers together, they're able to negotiate prices and strike prices. And most importantly, we also put in frameworks to make sure that there's integrity in that trade. That means whatever is traded gets set. Whatever you promise that you have and you're selling, actually have it. Whatever you promise that you buy, particularly buy it, and then there's integrity. That. And at LCFE, currently we are licensed to focus on 4 asset classes. Focus on products, drugs, we focus on oil and gas products, also focus but right now, enable trade on those asset classes. That's like a product. Now, the commodities ecosystem, all the resources are according to that ecosystem. So basically, what we're trying to communicate is that the value that we bring to the ecosystem as an exchange, first and foremost, like I mentioned earlier, we build a structure. There's recognized structure. There are different players that come into. We need to ensure that whatever it is that we are trading, whatever it is that is being traded, is whatever it is that is being executed. We're able to see it, and then regulations are part of it because CSCS. And the most important part, which I think one that everybody knows, because when you talk about LCFE and we hear that product is the fact that we are practically a platform, and we are neither the product owners, which is the seller in this case, nor the buyers. And this is what applies in every exchange. What we practically do, bringing the prices of the market forces, buyers and the sellers are able to determine what price that particular product for that particular, and that's where we are able to dynamics in pricing system. So that means the prices are not static. And then the risk, the various risk management for the various segments are also taken care of, which is integrity, and then data collection. We're able to do exactly what we are what markets what is required for the market, and then it takes national planning. And then importantly also financing is important. So the various stakeholders have access to financing to their business, and then investors also have access to finance projects, and then held hold reasonably in a regulated environment. I had my senior colleague Bola also said that this class of assets basically opposes. That is one of the major reasons why any of those can be classified as because of the level of regulation and level of management that they put into what the commodity LCFE, and most importantly, the fact that when it is happening. Then briefly, I also like to talk about our digital alignment. Basically, what do we use technology to do ecosystem? First and foremost, the trading and the alignment, capital market, sellers and buyers, and the various price control and price discovery mechanism. All these structures put in robust technology. Another part of it is regulations. Regulators and regulated are able to have a joint platform and interact. And then there's also management, market control, there's access to platforms, warehouse management, various forms of the commodities management. We're able to provide the risk system, risk control mechanisms, and most importantly, there's transparency. Which importantly is what. And I'll talk about price discovery also, about data collection and financing. All of these technology to achieve largely technology and the commodities. Now, I'm talking about I don't want to call it derivatives, but the yields technology basically in commodities. The most important is the fact that we're able to provide a platform where capital raising instruments like ETS and ETNs and exchange traded notes and are being able to raise and deploy. And this can be used in various sectors of ecosystem, which importantly will basically have of propelling the economy. So the commodity aggregators, for example, can raise funds, regulated and transparent manner. The commodity processors, mills, infrastructure development, research and development, which is very key, very prominent in this part of the world, and coaching facilities. The various participants basically that comes on board to facilitate successful product listing, product trading, especially in the agricultural system, and actually using the next-gen technologies to raise agricultural financing. That's what we're talking about. Now, introduction of which areas right now we DLT ecosystem. First and foremost, very useful. Excellent aim of tokenization. Direct regulatory oversight is also very important. This enables effectively regulates the market that causing quite a lot of causing havoc of using market structure, and then it provides multiple access. Funds are able to whatever they have, whenever they want, whether the market is open, and then the different participants are able to function without necessarily going. That is out of that API. Then we also have a multi assets that are what we are already trying to achieve. That is the case. And have multiple assets. These assets have and then we're able to. And then we also have direct carry. I think there's direct carry and direct depository, because I've heard multiple speakers shorting market as luckily we actually achieved its net service provider, which is CSCS, actually moving to eventuality. Now, I also want to talk briefly about position of our regulators right now. Very important to note that we've had a very, very responsive party in of our regulators. And in September this year, September 2020, SEC released their latest guideline on digital assets. February this year, SEC was also looking at. I think we can post the outcome of that or that decision. The fact that that we now because not get so much that we have right now is not effectively affecting the market. But in 2020, 2022, there's been quite a number of engagement with digital asset providers, but engagement from SEC right now. That engagement has been getting insight, getting trainings, getting knowledge from digital assets. These fields where you constantly have to learn and learn, that I will decide your position. They are always very happy to embrace that approach, making sure that there's constant interaction. Kind of the information well supports the advantages of technology assets. We've had guidelines on assets for 5 months of investment, minimum period. Importantly, the risk management, internal audit, custody. All of this is basically meant to infuse the much needed integrity market as far back as digital assets trading is concerned. And we are very, very confident needed results. Now, almost lastly, I will talk about the what I call the market sense. While DLT not be fully foreign commodity. The first thing is the fact that we have aging investing population as far as the capital market is concerned. Naturally human beings, what you are not factoring rather want to stay with what aging investors have very little blocking or right. And then we have very little interest by the next generation. Partly from a lack of knowledge, adequate training, and down up the absence of every policy. However, in the midst of all of these gaps and all of these things, it is very important that we note that one of the key factors, one of the important advantages that the ledger technology brings into simplification of and I largely believe that once this is properly implemented, and then we can achieve a lot of processes, definitely this will be orientation and reorientation, especially next generation. And then once we have more knowledge out there, once we have improved out there, definitely this will improve or build more on the investors' confidence. Start having more confidence. I mentioned earlier that The reason why this is not widely adopted, and not because of benefit, because of the absence of knowledge of this benefit. Once those benefits have been known, then fares are being paid in a simple and understandable manner. Definitely we have investors' confidence. And of course, when we have confidence beats participation. Definitely participation will also help in building the market. And then definitely also DLT will also achieving almost everything, achieving actually achieving time trading. All right, so what are the opportunities that we currently have? Definitely, once we talk about price processes, then we have very easy exchange and regulatory monitor. The exchange is able to function easier, and it's also able to once the exchange is easier in an easier manner, make sure that integrity is definitely we have a very agile market. Very agile market, we can now start talking about making sure that we operate other exchanges so we can have multiple balance things elsewhere outside LCFE, vice versa. And most importantly, down the line is the fact that we can now start having global price discovery. Then investors can actually make very good so thank you very much. I plan to make these steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotimi Ayodele-Oba. That was a very masterful presentation by you. It was quite engaging. In your thank you, I saw the gold bar. I hope you find a way of wheeling it over to my office. You know, well, quite engaging. A quick question I would like to ask you is this. Your exchange is a relatively new exchange when you compare it to the NASD, the NGX on the block. Now, when you look at the demography of those who have traded with you so far, within the short period of time you have been active in the market, would you say that you see a lot of younger generation showing interest in trading?
Sadly, no. Although this is, then I also want to say that yes, we are and then we've been around for a while, being led by quite a number of yes, and it might be young in operations, but definitely they are not new to the market. That being said, our target basically is to make sure that our form of digitalization is not replicate what is existing. Our form of digitalization is prove on what. And one of the ways that we have found that we have to drive that, fact that we have to on board and the next generation, and then make sure also that we carry along. So our target is basically that. Now the question is, have we achieved? Looking at our own target, looking at our we are still far from where we are going. But when we look at our metrics of growth, I see that we are largely approaching. The gold investment was launched in July. It was launched in July. It's less than 6 months on the market, and it was launched by the Depository. And we also agree that that's the first time in this part of the world. We are largely partnering with educating people, right? And making sure that we don't compromise on the existing structures. It can be improved anyway, but make sure that we don't compromise on the existing structure, which guarantees the integrity of the market. And then combining this also make using the different forums, different approaches. I mean, if you're working, they are constantly monitoring, and as we are monitoring the result, they are making adjustments. But we are confident that in our set time.
Okay, thank you, Rotimi. Maybe just the last question for me here on this particular issue. I'm asking myself whether there is some kind of collaboration between the different FMIs. So we see maybe an LCFE, an NGX, an FMDQ, and NASD coming together and saying, you know what, look, we've got the potentials of growing our respective markets. And we've got a younger demography that we can appeal to, but we need to collaborate. I might be wrong, but I've not yet seen that collaboration going on between the FMIs, the various financial market infrastructure, to be able to educate and enlighten investors in more contemporary technologies and how they can benefit them. Because we should be working from the benefits. I think Chinwe was alluding to that, that we need to work from the benefits that will accrue to investors. So if we can appeal to the younger investors, show them what the opportunities, and you have also showed us the slide, what the opportunities are, then don't you think we will go a lot faster and further?
That's a very good question. Our approach at LCFE, also that I mean, we don't see other examples around the so we try to collaborate. And you might not have known this because not to the public yet, but we have quite a lot of collaboration. Like I mentioned earlier, CSCS provides our shares. Its collaboration is happens on a basis. We have quite a lot of things currently trying to work out with NG clearing. We have a number of also exchange. And you need to understand the fact that there are two things that the first thing is that we're trying to collaborate exchanges that are listing similar products. So that's prospect. So we are able to have agricultural products, other exchanges that are. And we're also trying to also make sure that we can work with exchanges that are also listing different products. NASD, which is why we focus on. But we can work together. We have quite a number of areas of especially around the Orient. These are, I mean, bringing local investors like we mentioned. These are one of the major areas where we have common, and we have several communities. Even though we might not have the same lines, but this collaboration is top of mind, and it's something that we are missing as we can. But as you can agree with me, we are developing the market, but most importantly, also developing the ecosystem around the same time, and then working with different sectors and the environment where we're working. Our progress might not be as right now, but the market.
Okay, thank you very much, Rotimi. Now, the last, but certainly not the least person who will be talking this afternoon, because time is fast spent, is Mr. AbdulQudus Isiaka. Mr. AbdulQudus Isiaka is a colleague of mine at Proshare. The team has just released a report, Online Trading in the Age of Distributed Ledger Technology, Improving Investors' Trading Experience. The report will be something Mr. Isiaka will give us some insights into. But before he gives us those insights, it's a brief profile of Mr. Isiaka. AbdulQudus is a senior economist at Proshare. He heads the Market Intelligence Unit, which covers developments in the domestic and global economies, as well as in the financial markets. AbdulQudus holds a master's degree from Heriot-Watt University, Scotland, United Kingdom, and a bachelor's degree from the University of Lagos. AbdulQudus is passionate about alternative investment, private equity, and venture capital. He loves to deploy his strong analytical and communication skills and financial savvy and depth visualization skills to endow investing public with top-of-the-range business intelligence. AbdulQudus has his other major interests in macroeconomic analysis and forecasting, capital market, technology, Islamic banking, and Finance. AbdulQudus has participated in and facilitated and served as a reporter at several academic and non-academic discussions and conferences. When he's not at work, he enjoys reading classics, solving word puzzles, and playing Scrabble. I didn't know that, AbdulQudus. That's a new one. Play Scrabble. Okay, great. AbdulQudus is also pursuing a PhD program at the moment, and I wish him the best of luck. So, AbdulQudus, I yield the floor to you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I must say a big thank you to my boss and supervisor, Mr. Teslim Shitta-bey, for that very generous introduction. So as not to take too much time, I must just say that my brief is this afternoon very simple, and I have no plans to complexify it. I think we've had a very elaborate and edifying discussion around distributed ledger technology and what it offers to the various stakeholders, what CSCS and a number of other financial market infrastructures tend to or stand to benefit in terms of speed and accuracy of settlement, the prospect of T+1 clearing cycle, or if you like, the settlement cycle, and you know, the fact that we could also see security and risk can also be moderated. We've also talked today about that Nigerian traders and perhaps even traders across the continent can have access to a wider range of assets to trade in. We have also not failed to talk about the inherent risks and the apparent need for regulation, given that the idea of DLT is a new one. So all of this, I must say, is contained in our report, the Nigerian Online Trading Portal Ranking Report 2022. It is titled DLT sorry, I would like to take that again. So in our report, I'll come back to the title of the report in a bit when I share the screen. So let me also quickly say before I begin to share my screen, or maybe I can do that immediately. So since 2016, we've sought to stir up this kind of healthy rivalry in the capital markets, especially with regard to service delivery among online trading platforms. And we believe that by conducting this independent survey, which is what we've done again this year, we not only would identify the continuously changing preferences and expectations of consumers, we would also ensure that we're upping the ante, as it were, in service delivery in terms of what is obtainable in the capital market. So I'd like to share my screen at this point. I hope I'm able to do that from my end. All right, so I would like that if we could confirm that my screen is up. And
yes, AbdulQudus, we can see your screen.
Oh, great. So there you have it around report 2022. So my presentation would cover preamble, a bit of what are budget rankings and finds. As I said, the heavy lift, I have no plans to make it difficult. But I found this, we did find this quote by the Bank for International Settlements, and I felt it was nice to just drop it here to set the tone for the discussion. The automation of the trading process has important consequences for the operational efficiency of markets. And we've been talking a lot about DLT. So there you have it, the title of the report, Online Trading, the Age of Distributed Ledger Technology, the Doubts, the Pains, and the Opportunities. So just to move very quickly to save time, it's been a long day already. Our methodology, basically, we collected data. For the purpose of data collection, we carried out a customer survey for 60 days. It opened September 1st, 2022 and closed October 31st, 2022. Also, for that purpose, we relied on information from the platforms themselves for aggregate data on customer preferences and patterns like customer conversion rate. So for both purposes, survey links were made available on our website, social media platforms, and to all operators via email. So we had, at the end of the day, we collected data and we did plan and eventually did rank the platforms. And these platforms, we broke them down into 3. The CMOs themselves, that's the capital market operators, the FX trading portals, as well as fintech portals. Okay, so we'll move on to, okay, so based on, still talking about the methodology, right? We're looking at the criteria for ranking. So there are 4 main criteria: technology, mobile accessibility, service, and fees and benefits. Those were the 4 considerations we made. Okay, moving on, I would be talking about the rankings now. So in terms of the rankings, for the CMOs, Meritrade came out on top first, Crodros came up second, then Investment One Easy came up in the 3rd place. Now, analyzing their performances in the various aspects we considered, don't forget we said we're looking at 4 areas: technology, mobile accessibility, service, and fees and benefits. So in looking at some of those areas, we can find that Meritrade came up first. In terms of speed of execution, that's technology. Codros came in second, Investment One came in third as expected. Then Lead Trader 4th, Bangkok 5th, and Morgan Capital, as well as Offer Stevens tie in the 6th position. GTI is lack of time, I wouldn't be able to do a complete rundown. But then in terms also of accessibility or mobile, or if you like accessibility, Meritrade came in first as well of all the CMOs. Codros came in second, Investment One also came in third. Then in terms of broker service, or if you like customer service responsiveness, again, Meritrade came in first, Codros second, Investment One third. So it does look like Meritrade, Codros, and Investment One are indeed leading the pack in for the CMOs. So moving on very quickly to ranking FX trading platforms. So at the end of our survey, the first was Forex Time in this category. First was Forex Time, second was Eagle Global Market, and third was Hot Forex. So looking at the various aspects considered in terms of speed of execution, FXTM, that's Forex Time, came in first. Eagle Market second, XTB third. Then also in terms of customer service responsiveness, FXTM topped that ranking as well, and then followed by Eagle Global Market. Hot Forex came in. Okay, Hot Forex and Eagle Global Market tied in the 2nd position, and making XTB and FXCM coming in the 4th position, also tying in the 4th position. Then in terms of customer service expectation, Eagle Global Market came in the 1st position, pushing FXTM, that's Forex Time, to the 2nd place. So that's the ranking of FX trading platforms. Then the ranking of fintech portals, Hantech came in the 1st place, Bamboo came in the 2nd place, Trove came in the 3rd place, and that's a summary. But breaking it down and looking at the various aspects, we can see that in terms of speed of execution, Hantech came in the 1st place, Trove came in the 2nd place, Bamboo came in the 3rd place. Accessibility or mobile, if you like, mobile accessibility, Hantech came in 1st place, Trove came in 2nd place, and Bamboo came in third place. Now, before I round off my presentation, these were some of the interesting findings we made, and this could be really useful to capital market operators as well as stakeholders generally. So we found that in terms of platform discovery, 48.14% of respondents confirmed that it was through the company that they came to know of the platform. Then in terms of, then 26.61% confirmed that it was through referrals or word of mouth. The social media played a role. About 13.73% of the respondents confirmed that the platform, the very platform regarding which they were filling the survey, was discovered through the social media. Then in terms of online adverts also contributed. So in that order, we can see that the company brand, the brand itself seems to have been much more defining and critical in also perhaps putting the platform out there. Then also in terms of investment expectation, so for most investors, especially those who partook in this survey, 58.49, that's more than half of those who took the survey confirmed that capital appreciation was most paramount and was most important consideration that they will be making. 28.824% were much more concerned about dividends than any other consideration. Then in terms of preservation of value, 7.339% confirmed that that was their concern. Then 5.88% represents the other considerations that ranked paramount for some other respondents. Okay, so also as part of the further findings we made in the course of this survey, the percentage of income invested. So for all those who partook in the survey, we had 32.09% confirmed that they would invest between 5 and 10% of their income, while 29.39% confirmed that they would invest between 10 and 20% of their income, while 22.8% confirmed that they would invest 20% and above of their income, while 15.71% confirmed that they will invest less than 5% of their income. So it does look like most people queue into between 5 and 20%, more than half, close to 60% of the respondents would invest between 5 and 20% consequently. So also we found out as part of the outcomes of the survey that most people are interested in equities. So in analyzing some of the securities of interest to respondents, we saw that 76.18% were most concerned and most interested in terms of equities, while 9.12% were interested in fixed income. Interestingly, honestly, you would have thought that at this point in time, especially where the Naira is on the nosedive, I mean, it's been taking a beating consistently in the last 4 or 5 months. You'd imagine that a larger number of respondents would be interested in FX, but not quite the case. Only 8.78%, less than 10% think that FX should be a mainstay. Again, maybe this could be because they're looking at the long term. Again, FX is only meant as a sort of an edge and perhaps for speculative purposes. So maybe reasonably, you don't expect it to be a mainstay in your portfolio. And then in terms of orders, 2.53% think that, so 2.53% think that they could invest in other securities, 2.2% in commodities, and 1.18% in cryptos. Again, that is a little bit shocking, given that a large number of Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, millennials, feel that crypto is the way to go. But that's the outcome of the survey, and I thought to drop this here as well. Benefit of new discoveries is progress at the speed of light. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much, AbdulQudus. It's quite interesting outcomes. Like you said, some of them are a bit surprising, especially when you talk about the younger generation and cryptocurrency and the foreign exchange. You would have expected a lot of people to be interested in the FX market as a hedge, like you have rightly pointed out. But the survey doesn't seem to suggest that our presumptions are correct. So thank you very much, AbdulQudus, for that insightful presentation. We have to move on quickly now. I will skip the Q&A issues. If you have questions, you could kindly put them in the Q&A box. We will share it with our discussants, our participants, the speakers, and we will get back to you and convey their answers to some of the questions that you asked, because our time has been far spent. At this point, what I want to do is to ask Mr. Babangida Yahaya to give closing thoughts on the DLT and his insights into where we're likely to go from here.
Thank you very much, and it's been a very insightful session for me. I have also been listening to all the speakers from within the ecosystem, and I must say that it's been great learning for me as well. It's also interesting to see that this topic we're discussing today serves the interest of the market at large, and we're beginning to see how it brings value to the entire ecosystem. I think that all the speakers have largely been speaking from the same hymn book. We clearly see that there's a benefit, that the world is going somewhere, and in that direction, we should also be looking in that direction and be making some level of progress towards where the world is going. I had earlier mentioned that changes can happen in two ways. It is either they are regulatory driven or they are market-led. I'm an advocate of market-led initiatives, more because in the market, we understand where it pinches, where the shoe pinches, right? And we deal with the investors on a daily basis. We understand the pain points a lot better. And as such, I think that that collaboration as an entire market is very critical to taking the next steps. I think that we are pretty much on the right path. We just need to consolidate on the existing efforts. We need to pull everything together. We need to apply some sense of urgency so that the change that we desire is not forced upon us. Instead, we will be the ones driving that change in a more of a proactive manner. So I would just, like to thank every speaker for their contributions. Like I did say, I learned a lot from everything everyone has said, and the time is right. Right now, I mean, there couldn't have been a better time for us to push towards the realization of these very groundbreaking initiatives. And thank you very much for also inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yahaya. It's been a pleasure having you here. I must say you've added your own knowledge to the pool of knowledge, and we do not take it for granted. Thank you very much. Yes, then I can come to Rotimi. Rotimi, could you kindly give me your closing thoughts, please? Thank you. Hello, Rotimi, you're muted. Rotimi? Okay. Okay, I'm not sure Rotimi is around. Okay, so I would like to hand over to my colleague, Adelodun Jimoh, to take us to the home stretch and close the session for today. AJ, would you kindly take over?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Teslim. It's been very, very insightful, I must say. It's my first time attending a Proshare webinar, and I must say that this I've also learned a lot. It's been nice hearing our speakers talk and share their own views and giving insights to the topic. They obviously did justice to the topics and On this note, we say thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for taking out time out of your busy schedule to be here at the webinar today to help us to do justice to the topic that we are talking about. The Proshare online trading ranking video will be released later today, and we encourage everyone to please log on to the www.proshare.co to read the report. To all the participants that joined us from here in Nigeria and abroad, we say thank you for joining in. If you're unable to share your feedbacks here in the chat box, please reach out to us at business@proshare.co. Join the conversation on our YouTube channel, our Twitter, our Instagram, and other social handles. A replay and of course discussions will still be ongoing around DLT and this webinar. Of course, we say thank you once again. It's been a great webinar. On this note, we say enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Proshare, Nigeria's leading financial information hub, recently published an incisive report titled The Anatomy of Crude Oil Theft in Nigeria, Understanding the Graft Impacts and Implications, preferring solutions to what has become a major issue of national concern.
I think the report is very comprehensive. It goes very deep in analyzing it to the extent that I'm not surprised, or indeed, let me say, I will not be surprised if some of the progress we are seeing today in terms of the reawakening of government's interest to deal with this as a result of the Proshare report, because that report was bang on time, was very timely, was perfectly timed, so that when you read it, it's very compelling to the extent that you cannot read that report and then allow the status quo to continue. We will have no future without that. But the report is excellent. I love it.
A copy of the report goes for 150,000 naira only. You can send in your other inquiries to business@proshare.co.
In need of financial information you can trust, breaking business news, in-depth analyses and reports of different sectors, log on to www.proshare.co, fill in all the details required, a click on the subscription plan that interests you. A confirmation mail will be sent to you. Kindly click on the link and follow the instructions to make payments. For more information, you can send the mail to business@proshare.co or call 0700 Proshare. Proshare, intelligent investing.
Tune in to Web TV Daily to stay up to date and informed on the financial market, personal finance, and more. We have got you covered with all your favorite TV shows, economy and politics, market review, women's series, millennial talk, Islamic Finance Weekly, The Brief, exclusive interviews, events, and we keep you up to date on all the updates in the financial market with the market opening gong. Watch premium content. Watch Web TV. Same news, different perspective.